So hello everybody and welcome to another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I of course am Mr. Warren Hayes and I welcome you absolutely with open arms to talk about professional wrestling for another couple of hours right here on youtube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes, or on your favorite podcast application as well, whether you're watching or listening to this on Spotify, because there's video on Spotify and the watching works. Spotify or on Apple Podcasts or wherever. I appreciate you being here. Thank you very much for allowing me to enter your ear holes. That is just tremendous. And I appreciate it a great deal. Just like I would appreciate a great deal if you left a like on this video or a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or a 5-star rating on Spotify. Just little things that can help out all the time. I know I say it every week, but I wouldn't be saying that over and over if it wasn't true. So that being said, outside of that, if you want to join the Mr. Warren Hayes Show Discord, the link is in the description. We, of course, would love to have you here. But as for right now, as for what we're going to do on this week's podcast, well, it's going to be very New Japan / AEW heavy because I am going to be reviewing on the show both Wrestle Kingdom 19 and Wrestle Dynasty that happened on January 4th and 5th, respectively, 2025, the first big shows of the year. And that'll be pretty much it. So if you're into listening to me talk about these two good shows, one was good, one was great. I'll let you figure it out. I'll let you figure it out for yourself, or just listen to the reviews. We want to make sure this is what we're going through this week. This is what we're doing. It's a simple show, but packed with wrestling goodness. And I got to tell you, I had a good time reviewing the shows. I had a good time watching both, and I had a better time. How about that? Reviewing them. So hope you enjoy it. Thank you very much for being here. Let's get right to it. It is now time to review New Japan Pro Wrestling's biggest show of the year, and the year just started, Wrestle Kingdom 19, of course, on January 4th, 2025. I don't know why I hesitated. It's always the same thing. January 4th every year. And this year being 2025, of course, from the Tokyo Dome over there in a little hamlet known as Tokyo in Japan. I don't know if I'm going to shock anyone here with this review. I don't think this might be the most predictable review that I could do. I thought that overall this was a good show. I definitely don't think it was a great show, and I think that's kind of the consensus. So that's why I'm saying nothing shocking here, right? However, this is the show that I feel was to be expected considering the status of the overall roster in New Japan and how they are building the future of the company right now. We're going to get to that when we talk about the main event, but I think this is the best possible outcome in an environment where, your top guys from the former era are all either washed or just gone. And you are in this spot where all you have is a bunch of new guys, untested guys, new guys / untested guys having to step up into the big spots. So you don't have the luxury of, 10 years of Tetsuya Naito or Kazuchika Okada or Hiroshi Tanahashi at the top of the card to buoy a lot of things that you want to be trying out. Now you are forced to put guys that you've never tried at the top. And this has been my talking point for every moment I got to speak on Wrestle Kingdom moving in. It's because of course there's been a controversy around the selection of Shota Umino in the main event. And a lot of people weren't into that and didn't think it was a good idea. But again, as I've posited multiple times, if not Shota, who? Who would you have put in the top spot in the main event against Zack Sabre Jr. as a drawing match, as a match that could deliver? Who would have been the guy? Now, we have the benefit of hindsight now. We'll be able to expand on that a little bit. But my entire point here is that this was a laboratory. It was a workshop environment in which we were waiting in to see what New Japan is trying to do and with whom, and how these people being put in these spots would be able to deliver. I think there are people who absolutely delivered. There are people who did not. And there are people who probably surprised me. Not only probably, they did surprise me as much in regards to their performance and how they delivered. I'm not going to talk too much in riddles. We're going to ease our way into the review. Just as a note before we start off, the attendance reported for New Japan's Wrestle Kingdom 19 is at 24,107 people, which of course is good, but a significant drop down from last year from Wrestle Kingdom 18, which was at 24,422, a number that had been slowly on the rise. Wrestle Kingdom 17 was at like 26,000, something like that. It was on the low end of 26,000, if memory serves me right. So last year, back up to, back up a little higher, going up to 27,000. Now this year, we've noted a drop. And a noticeable drop on top of that. We're not talking about a couple of hundred people. We're talking like about 3,000 people. So again, like sort of to go to my point, this should not surprise anyone because there weren't any like outright drawing matches. Now we could argue that Naito and Hiromu was put on the card to serve as a quote unquote drawing match because it's a match people have been wanting to see for a long time that is put together by two of the promotion's, fan favorites, like two wrestlers that the fans really do enjoy. And this was put together, obviously, added to the card, obviously, to try and compensate for the main event, which, no one can say with a straight face that Zack Sabre Jr. versus Shota Umino is a drawing match. No one can say that like in good faith. That's just how it goes. So that was probably balanced out. So you could still wonder, how many more tickets did that push? Was there a significant change in the, was there a significant change? Basically what I'm trying to say is if Hiromu and Naito wasn't on this card, how much lower would the attendance have been? Well, I can't answer that question. I don't have that level of granular detail. I probably have some resources that I'll be able to reach out to in a couple of days and see what kind of stuff they have. But in the meantime, I mean, this is, it's fine. Don't get me wrong. It's fine. It's a good number. No one can be like outright disappointed. I think, under 20K, this would have probably been measured as a disaster. 24,000, it's fine. Sure, it's a significant drop, but we've got another year to build people up. Let's re-roll this tape. Let's re-roll this tape in 2026. But might as well start off with the main event, right? I think we'll go with the main event where Zack Sabre Jr. successfully retained the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship against Shota Umino. I don't think there is much of a surprise in this situation. A match that lasted 43 minutes and 44 seconds, which I don't think this is going to be a hot take. I think the consensus is that it was too long. And I think it was too long, especially considering what they wanted to do. Now, let's say we transport ourselves back a few years, pre-pandemic, let's say 2017, or even before that, 2016, 17, 18. And you've got guys like Kazuchika Okada and Kenny Omega, and even before that, we can go to Shinsuke Nakamura, we can go to Hiroshi Tanahashi. God, that was hard to get out for some reason. And these guys are having like 30+ minute main events. But you're like these are some of the greatest wrestlers ever. They've been built. The people are into the hype, and they're main event guys. Like these are tippy top guys, confirmed that we've seen develop, that we have got behind. We know how good these guys are. So if they settle in for a 30, 35, 40 minute main event, well, you're like, okay, now we've got stuff we got some bones to chew on. This will be interesting. This is going to be good. Overall, this has the potential to be really, really, really great. Now you're coming into an environment where you have Zack Sabre Jr., who is a terrific pro wrestler, and I don't think anyone, I don't think anyone is arguing that, but his standing as a world champion, it still has to come together. Like, we've seen a few defenses, but, as a top guy, I think there's still some building that has to be done, and Shota Umino, who is completely unproven in this type of spot. Zack Sabre, it's not as if Zack Sabre Jr. is a guy who is used to the main event in the Tokyo Dome, but is nonetheless a guy that maybe you have a little more faith in to pull out like the great a great worthy performance versus another guy, like I said, who is absolutely unproven in this type of environment. So if you want to go the 40+ minute route on a match like this with a guy who is unproven and a guy who is still finding his world championship legs, I think it's a ballsy decision, and it's not necessarily a good one. Now, I know they're sticking with tradition to a degree where it's like, well, look, the Wrestle Kingdom main event typically is this elongated, epic thing, right? But not everyone can do the epic match. You get Kazuchika Okada in there, you get Will Ospreay in there, you get Kenny Omega, you get Tanahashi. That's a whole, even Naito and Prime Naito, that's a whole other ball of wax. But in this situation here, I would have picked, Concision over, an expansive epic poem. This long yarn that they were trying to spin here, because I don't think it lived up to it, and I think that it was ultimately a detriment to the enjoyment of the match. Where you're like, at some point, I was like, let's go, fellas. Let's start bringing this home, because, man, this is doing Shota Umino more harm than good. So we'll transition into that topic then. Shota Umino. Again, every opportunity I had to speak about Wrestle Kingdom on the podcast, on live stream, and talk about the main event specifically, I wanted to hammer home one point. I wanted to hammer home one thing that, I felt was important to underscore here. And I wanted to underscore it specifically towards people who felt like Shota Umino was not the guy, and that were really upset about him not being the guy. And I understand, don't get me wrong. I'm not here to argue whether you think he was a worthy candidate or not. That's not the point. The point I always maintained was, if not him, who, right? And then they decided to go with Shota. So why would they decide to go with Shota if not to be in a sink or swim type of situation, right? I think this is something that they absolutely wanted to do with him. Toss him into the deep end and see what happens. They earmarked this kid from the moment he returned from excursion as the ace, as the top guy. The Reiwa 3, him calling himself the ace of the company, and so on and so forth. All of this stuff was meant, the big entrance, the whole nine. Like, Shota has, you can feel the company is behind him, right? Like it's just he's one of these guys where you just feel the machine is working for him. And this was a moment where they just wanted to put their money where their mouth is and say, okay, well, we need the new guys to step up, and fans want the new guys to step up. So let's throw him in there. Like I said, it's a sink or swim situation. Either he makes it or he doesn't. I don't think he necessarily swam. Well, he wasn't out there, he wasn't like a Michael Phelps out there, but he definitely didn't drown. But he paddled his way through it. Okay. I don't even think that this is his worst match. I think his work was solid. Just like I thought Zach's work was absolutely tremendous. And we'll get to Zach in a second. But Shota in this match, I thought worked hard. I think on a technical basis, there's not much you can reproach. A couple of sloppy little spots at some point. I think he should do the spinning neck breaker thing, the ignition that he calls it, right? I think he should take that out of his arsenal. He's not able to land it properly, and especially tonight, it didn't look good. It looked really goofy. It's the things that make the difference between a good pro wrestler and a great pro wrestler that he hasn't nailed yet. He hasn't bolted that down yet. He's still a guy going around doing the pro wrestling thing and doing it. He's good. He does it well. Don't get me wrong here. But the in-betweens, the getting the crowd invested into what he's doing, like creating an actual crowd connection that is not just like fabricated and forced. That's the word I'm looking for. Forced because, he comes in through the audience and he slaps hands and he kisses babies and, all that, and he gives his bracelets. That's what's missing from Shota Umino. That is the stuff that he hasn't locked down yet. And in this match, there were multiple occasions, multiple spots where Zack Sabre Jr. was giving him the opportunity to just go in and milk the crowd for a reaction. Zach is locking him up, into submissions, and he's just there. He's just there. There's only one moment that this happened, that Shota was able to create like a connection with the crowd, and that's with the elongated, like there was this long what was it? It was like an ankle lock, right? Yeah, he had locked him into an ankle lock, a knee bar, whatever Zach was doing. He's fiddling around with his legs, essentially, right? Because this story of the match was Zach working the ankle. So it was probably so, and Shota was in pain, and he was struggling to get to the ropes, and Zach was, wrenching back and, noodling around like he usually does. And Shota was screaming, was, begging to get to the ropes, and he was crawling. And that was a nice long period that got the crowd invested, as a babyface should do, right? That's what, essentially that's what he should be doing here. But there were other occasions in the match where Zach is doing this and Shota's he's not capitalizing on it. And that's the stuff that he's missing, at least to create a crowd connection. And this is why I feel the crowd has been turning on him for the past few weeks. And it's not necessarily months at this point. It's not necessarily a question of him, of the audience feeling the machine pushing him, just like I said, and them rejecting Shota on that part, not unlike, Vince era Roman Reigns, right? Not unlike that, but I mostly feel that it's him that it's the audience just not feeling, a fiery babyface connection. I think that there's a lot of that they feel that it's maybe a little contrived, a little forced, and maybe a heel turn would do him wonders. Maybe this is exactly what he needs to do. I think the crowd took a lot of pleasure in moments where he was acting heelish to, just outright boo. I think they took a lot of pleasure in that. And I think that sort of fed him as well. It gave him a little food to move forward as well. I mean, New Year's Dash is coming up, right? On the 6th. So basically, I'm recording the Wrestle Kingdom review here on the Saturday. So in 2 days, we're going to have the New Year's Dash, which, is generally perceived as as not a reset, but like a season premiere. It's not necessarily a reset, but a season premiere. You set up a bunch of new things, new feuds for the new year, so on and so forth. Like, out with the previous season, Wrestle Kingdom's done, and into the new one. And, why not start it off with a shocking heel turn by Shota Umino, turning his back on, on being a fan favorite. I think that would do tremendous work for him and maybe would help him create that connection. We'd say this jokingly, but I'm starting to believe that this might be the right course. Send him back off on excursion, get him out, send him to England, send him to CMLL, just get him out there, or send him back to the US where he loves to spend his time. He loves being in the United States. Yeah, you can tell. Like, he loves being in the US. Send him off there and have him return to New Japan with something new, something fresh, a new outlook, a new character, a new vision, a new persona, whatever you want to call it. Not unlike Tetsuya Naito, because the parallels are, they're almost, the parallels are like super close at this point. So might as well just, it's not, might as well see if lightning will hit twice if you do the same scenario, or just try it homegrown. Just say, well, look, we're going to make you a heel. I'm going to make you a heel. The point is, ultimately, is that they tried it out. They put one of the new guys in a top spot, and he didn't deliver on a main event level. He's not ready. He's not there yet. There's a lot of stuff that still needs to be put together. Well, you've got another year to do it. And the worst thing I believe New Japan could do is stay the course. I think that's the worst possible thing they could do for the career of Shota Umino at this point. They need to try something out, and he's still young. It's still a very fresh career, so we're not like, I think it's absolutely okay to still be out there trying stuff out. Whatever it is they're doing with him right now is not working, and a change of scenery will do him a tremendous amount of good. Now, on the flip side, if we go to Zack Sabre Jr., I was just saying a few moments ago how, this is a guy who still needs to find his footing as a world champion, right? And we get to this main event, and to me, he proved that he's got this main event spot footing, because he dragged everything he could out of Shota Umino to give Shota Umino the spots to be who he is, and then some. And then on top of that, wrestled an impeccable match. It's rare that I'm going to be so black and white on a situation like this in regards to a wrestling match, but Zack did everything he could. Zack danced up a storm. How about this? Zack danced up a storm, but his partner couldn't follow, right? It's like, you have Fred Astaire dancing with Jack Black, Jack Black, he can do some of the, he moves. He's got some moves, but he's not Fred Astaire, who's, like a fucking magician as far as dancing goes. So that's really the best comparison that I can give here. And to properly express how I saw this match go down, where Zach was Zach, and in the top spot, he was ready to deliver, and he understood the structure, and he understood what you need to do to get the crowd invested in this. And it's not as if Zach was alone in his corner doing his little spots. No, he was opening doors wide open, and the other guy wasn't walking through them. So what are you supposed to do at this point? So if anything, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to poo-poo on Shota Umino and say he's not ready, he's not. And to a degree, I agree. But I think lost in this sauce is going to be the discussion around Zack Sabre Jr. and how much of a main event top guy he is, because he's able to wrestle at that level. Had he been with one of the, if he had, let's say we have the benefit of a time machine and we're able to transpose into this main event, one of the former era's guys, like from 2015, 2016, or a guy like Kenny Omega, like bring in, let's say we had that benefit. We would have had a completely different match, and it probably would be registering as one of the best matches of the year, like a shoo-in for a match of the year candidate. This one, it's not even close. It's not even close. So I didn't hate the match. I thought it was actually quite good, but on a technical sense. And then when it comes to trying to get me to feel things, it kind of failed. There's these spots, there's these moments, just like I think the key moment is the ankle lock struggle, right? Where I'm like, finally, we've got something baking in the oven here. Look at it's starting to rise. We've got it. From this point on, next gear, let's go. And Shota's into it, and the crowd is into it, and they're invested in it, but it doesn't rise any more than that. And that's a shame. So ultimately, if we want to put a star rating on it, I would give this 3 3/4 stars. But I think look, 3 3/4 stars, and the TLDR of my little review is too long, considering that these guys were essentially in test mode. Zack Sabre Jr. wrestled a match like a world champion. Shota Umino could not deliver. I think he couldn't keep up. Technically, a sound match by Umino. Technically sound, but no emotion, no feeling, no spark, no energy. Kept the crowd from being invested, kept me from being invested, which is most important. I need to be invested. I don't care about the audience. I care about myself. I think we should go to the top of the card then, and then work our way back up. Is that all right? Does that make sense? Is that good? We should do that? Okay. The Rainbow happened. Not the Rambo, not the Rainbow. The Rainbow happened on the pre-show. Again, as everyone knows by now, I believe, not to determine the 4 contenders to challenge for the KOPW title at New Year's Dash. No, we're back. We've abandoned that. That's been retired. The King of Pro Wrestling title has been retired, which, overall, my quick thoughts that I think it's a good thing. Less titles is a good thing. And the winner here would get a number 1 shot at the IWGP World Heavyweight title, and it's Hiroki Goto who defeated the Crew to get that shot on an upcoming date. He's not getting the next shot, because the next shot, of course, is going to be Ricochet at Wrestle Dynasty. But Goto, look, it kind of connects with what I was saying earlier. Like, who's ready for these top spots? who else? If not Shota Umino, who else, right? Well, there we go. We're not going with one of the Reiwa 3 here. We're going with proven commodity, safe choice and great worker, Hiroki Goto, who is not going to win a world championship. That's I think that's preordained at this point, but a guy that the audience loves and a guy who understands the mandates of when he gets put into these situations, and that's going to deliver, and that's going to be potentially a much better match than what we got at Wrestle Kingdom. Like, very much so. But you see, like, this is it. Like, we can't fall back on Tanahashi. Tanahashi's washed. We can't fall back on Naito. No, we can't. We need to fall back on, the new guys. Well, yeah, but look, this is what we're doing. Like, one of the new guys got belted up with the second biggest prize in the company. So now, who else? Do we go immediately to Shingo? Good old stalwart Shingo, always there for, a good challenger of the month situation. Maybe we're going to save that for a little later because that's coming too. No, we decide to go with Goto. And I look, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying, like, this is the environment in which New Japan is right now. Many of us had been pointing out the minute they brought the Reiwa 3 in, it's like, push these guys, make something out of them, let's go. Because your two top stars, Tanahashi, two of your top stars, I should say, Tanahashi and Naito, are on the decline. The next thing you know, Ospreay, Okada, they're gone, signing with AEW, they're no longer there, which it seems to have caught a few people by surprise in New Japan. So now they're stuck, having to build new guys without the benefit of having the old guys to put them over or carry them through some bigger matches and whatnot. Anyway, this is the situation we're in. So that's why we're, falling back onto, the comfortable pair of slippers that is Hiroki Goto. But it's a good pair of slippers, though. Wear and tear, it's resistant to wear and tear, waterproof, you've spilled coffee on it that doesn't even stain, those kind of slippers. These are a good fucking set of slippers. Don't get me wrong. They'll never let you down, but they'll never be a dress shoe. That's the point. They're slippers. They'll never be a dress shoe. Anyway, yeah, look, it's a Rambo. It's a battle royal. I don't rate these things. A couple of surprises though. Josh Barnett was into this. He came into the match, and of course, Josh Barnett. There is no way someone is eliminating him. Right? He's not taking a pin. He's not eating a submission. No one here is worthy of throwing Josh Barnett over the top rope. No. Josh Barnett is going to eliminate Josh Barnett while he has Bolton Oleg in a submission. It's going to be the power of Josh Barnett's own submission that is going to eliminate Josh Barnett, which I think is hilarious. Yuji Nagata also showed up for this. Satoshi Kojima as well with the MLW World Championship, and Alex Zane, who was actually the last entrant here in the Rambo. The people like Alex Zane, and the people they like the Hiroki Goto. You see the reaction he got when he came in, like the New Japan fans, they love the Hiroki Goto. Sanada was also in this, crazy when you think about it. Like I know commentary mentioned it, but I had started writing it down before commentary made a note of it. Sanada, from the main event of Wrestle Kingdom 18 to being on the pre-show 1 year later, Wrestle Kingdom 19, that has got to be one of the biggest falls from graces in the history of pro wrestling. It has to be. It has to be. From main eventing the Tokyo Dome to curtain jerking it on the pre-show. Anyway, the final four for your consideration were Tomohiro Ishii, Great-O-Khan, Hiroki Goto, and Alex Zane. And it is Hiroki Goto who won, as we mentioned. So let's it's a battle royal. What do you want from me? Next was we had Kosei Fujita and Robbie Eagles defeating the rest of the 3 other teams to become the new IWGP Junior Heavyweight champions. And it was the ladder match. And I was watching this. I'm like, what is this, AEW? Like, 4 teams, ladders. I'm like, okay. Look, the match. Here's the thing. The match ended up being kind of what I expected, but also a little wilder and a little sloppier. Like, it had all these weird ingredients together. Where I'm like, I'm really enjoying this, but also I'm terrified. But also this is not good. I ran such a gamut of emotions, but ultimately, like, I'm gonna sit down here and I'm gonna give this 3.5 stars out of 5. Christ, Warren, it's not that hard to say words. 3.5. It's it's ladder stuff, and it is what it is, and it's also it's weird to see this kind of Tony Khan like booking on a New Japan show at the same time, but it is what it is. There was, like I said, there were some sloppy spots. At some point, I think they tried to do a spot where Drilla Maloney does the Drilla Killer, and I think it was on Kushida, right? On a table, right? And they had angled the table against the railing so that it was at an angle, right? Not flat back. But Maloney completely woofs it, It's like, I'm like, okay. And it's not the first, or not the only spot that completely whiffs too, right? There's one where Kevin Knight is on he wants to do a spot off the tippy top of the ladder, right? And he's supposed to splash or whatever, and anyway, he's supposed to do it on Maloney, and he also completely flubs it. And it's just it's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. I really like the TJP Akira spot where Akira does a seated senton off of TJP's shoulders, who is on the apron, and Akira flies off to the floor through a table. That kind of ruled. But I'm big sold on Francesco Akira and Catch 22 in general, so no big surprise there. But there's just a series of crazy bumps throughout the match, high spots. Crowd is into it, it gets the crowd into this stuff. I enjoyed it though. Ultimately, my assessment is I didn't hate this. This was fun, So I thought it was well enough. It was well enough done. And there were more than enough spots where I thought these guys were putting themselves into true danger that warrants a proper rating, if you ask me. So yeah, 3.5 for me on that front. Mayu Iwatani successfully retained the IWGP Women's Championship against Azumi. This match ruled. I thought it was great. I thought this match was great. Starts off hot. On top of that, Azumi does some springboard dive, off the top rope to the floor, which was tremendous. And they're stiffing each other. They're working real snug. They're dropping each other on their heads, Azumi's doing destroyer, and she does a double underhook destroyer on top of that. I'm like, all right, let's go. It's just tremendous stuff. They're doing Germans, tombstones by Iwatani. She does the moonsault. Azumi kicks out. Then Mayu does that variant on the dragon suplex. I'm sorry, I don't know what the name is, but I know that's her finisher or whatever, and that's tremendous. Hell of a sprint. This was a match that lasted 8 minutes and 46 seconds. It will be remembered as the second shortest match of the night. The shortest match will unfortunately be the El Desperado Doki match. which probably should have, probably was planned to go longer. Yes. I loved it. I thought it was great. I thought a sprint is what this was. Tremendous sprint. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be very upset, and they're going to be like, of course, the women's match, the shortest match on the show, it doesn't even go 10 minutes, etc., etc. But this, and in a lot of circumstances, I will agree. But in this circumstance here, unlike other promotions who provide like the short matches for the women, right? Which happens frequently. The matches in those other promotions are structured in a way that the women don't necessarily shine. It's like they wrestle like they're wrestling. They put the match together as if they're about to go 12 minutes, but then the match ends at like 7-8 minutes, and it didn't feel anything special. It didn't feel like it went anywhere. This was a sprint from start to finish. Having Azumi in here, you know, who was the cornerstone of the high-speed division in Stardom for a long time, was probably contributed to that. Used to going, balls to the wall here. And that's exactly what it was. It was a sprint, hard-hitting, fast match. They maximized. They used up their time so perfectly here that it's hard for me to complain. It's hard for me to find a complaint here. To say, to find like an issue with the match. Now, if you want to complain about the fact that, oh, well, it's, they're not putting enough time they're not giving enough time for the women. Okay. But in this match here, I don't know how, I don't even know if more time would have been beneficial. This was so good. This was a tremendous and excellent, great, well put together match. Which brings to my argument sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes I get a little annoyed when we're pulling out time stats and number of matches and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, but how many of these matches are any good? Because you could fill up your cards with all sorts of 5-minute matches with just terrible wrestlers that are doing nothing matches, or either or. Doesn't necessarily have to be both. You can have great wrestlers who do nothing matches, or you could do that. But we don't often talk about quality when it comes to the women's matches. It's as if the bar that needs to be cleared is quantity. We need time, we need time, and we need numbers. We need quantity, more matches, longer matches. But the quality is never then something that we ever get into. So where is this going to rank? Are people going to bitch about this match? Like, if people bitch about this match, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. Like, later on in the evening, you have a men's match that lasts, 4 times the length of this match, and I couldn't wait for it to be over. This one left me wanting more, and that's a good feeling. That's something where I'm like, okay, well, next time these two fight, I'm going to tune in. I'm going to seek it out. Or, in other fringe cases, maybe people who had never seen I'm saying fringe cases, but in other cases where maybe some people have never seen a Mayu match or never saw a Azumi wrestle, maybe they'll be like, hey, I'm going to seek these people out. I'm going to look for their matches now moving forward. Like, yes, it was the shortest match on the entire card. Yes, it was a women's match, but you know what? It's probably the second, maybe third best match of the card. And it was sub 10 minutes. What do you want from me? This to me is a much more compelling victory. It's a much more compelling feather in the cap, is what I'm trying to say, for these two women than them having an extended 17-minute match that loses its way maybe at some point. I'm not saying that they can't have it or that they shouldn't have it, but what I'm saying in this circumstance here is that this sprint was tremendous. This is the kind of match that WWE tricks you into believing that they're having with the speed title, right? With those 5-minute everything app matches. This is the kind of match they trick you into believing they're having, but they're not. So I get annoyed. I just get annoyed sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. And this type of match reinforces that annoyance where I'm like, okay, so such and such promotion is having more matches than this other promotion throughout the year, and everyone applauds. Yeah, but how many of them stink? How many of them are you able to point out and say these were great? How many of these matches are you able to remember at the end of the year? We want quantity, we want numbers, but quality is never an equation. Ever an equation. It'll become an equation when Dave Meltzer pulls out his ratings and then maybe lowballs it or whatever the fuck. Then quality will become an issue. But it's never an intrinsic one when it comes to sticking up for women's wrestling, which I do, which I am. I still am. But we in the area of defense that we have in regards to women's wrestling, we often fail to promote the quality aspect of the match. We often fail to do that because we just want to see more. But seeing more doesn't necessarily mean that it's good. Doesn't necessarily mean the quality is there. Anyway, this was tremendous. It really was good. I went 4 1/4. Like I said, this can easily be someone's second, third best match of the night. Easily. Next, we had the New Japan World Television Championship match, another 4-way. Again, is this an AEW pay-per-view? Where El Phantasmo defeated Ren Narita, Jeff Cobb, and Ryohei Oiwa to become the new World Television Champion. I mean, this was the right thing to do, right? This was the crowd-friendly thing to do. It was the perfect story to tell. ELP coming back from his cancer scare, was able to fight it back, and back in the ring. Like you tap into that. Like, this is natural. This is what you do. I didn't know if they had someone else planned for this, because it was a 3-way for the longest time. Then El Phantasmo returned and they put him in here to make it a 4-way. I don't know if Oiwa was the guy that was earmarked. But clearly, I'm convinced the plan was changed, and that's good. You should do more of that last minute plan changing instead of sticking with your plan. I'm not saying always, but there's some moments where you just have to assess and you're like, well, look, the best decision in this circumstance is here. So whoever was supposed to win between Narita, Cobb, and Oiwa, I have a sinking feeling Oiwa was supposed to win. You sit him down and you say, look, El Phantasmo came back. He's got big babyface sympathy right now. The crowd is into him because, they're excited that he's not dying. He's excited he's not dying. We're all excited about not death. And it's the time is right to put a title on him. And you sit down, you tell that to the guy who was supposed to win, and the guy can throw a fit if he wants, but you're the booker. You do what's best for business, and what's best for business here was to give ELP, I believe, his first, I'm not mistaken, right? I think this is his first singles gold in New Japan, right? It is indeed his first singles gold. He's been junior tag champion. He's been heavyweight tag champion. He's even been strong open weight tag champion. So we got it all. From top to bottom. Look, I thought this was a good little match. I enjoyed it. Quite a bit. Narita spent most of the match not being a factor, and there was some good 3-way action between Cobb and ELP and Oiwa. Cobb at some point catches ELP off of a springboard into an F5000. And Oiwa does a Dr. Bomb on Jeff Cobb, which is impressive, even though Oiwa is being positioned as a big, strong boy. It's still something. It's still a sight to see. But that's where, Narita pulls the ref out of the ring and does the board gimmick. And thankfully, Jeff Cobb snaps the board over his knee, which was great. And he does a tour of the islands onto Narita, but then ELP breaks up the pin, tosses Cobb out, takes out Oiwa, who's on the ground. I think he does like a tope con hilo, something like that, or a dive. I don't quite remember, but lands the Thunder Kiss 86 on Narita for the win. So look, I thought this was solid fun, a good pace. I liked it a lot. We're going to go with 3.5 stars on this one. I thought it was good. I thought it was a fun time. I enjoyed it. Hiroshi Tanahashi defeated Evil to not retire or lose his hair. I don't know why. Did anyone really doubt it? Did anyone really think that that Hiroshi Tanahashi was going to retire suddenly, all of a sudden? No, of course not. Of course not. I hate these matches. I hate lumberjack matches. I knew exactly how this was going to go and went exactly as I thought it would, with, House of Torture taking out the other lumberjacks all the time and doing all sorts of fucking nonsense. There wasn't much to it. I did like one thing that made me chuckle audibly was when Evil is trying to take a powder, going up the ramp, and then Bolton Oleg, again in this show, a centerpiece, he runs up to grab him, and fireman carries him back to the ring, which I thought that was pretty cool. Look, you know what made this match is how much the crowd was into this. The crowd was into it. Like, there's matches that the audience will help. The audience will help improve a match just by their reaction, just by how they were into it. And they were really into this match. They were so into this match. They're hot for it. When, Evil does, not Evil, but Tanahashi does the everything is evil thing, and it popped huge for that. Like they also know what's up with this, right? And there's all sorts of shenanigans with the House of Torture, of course. You've got Dick Togo doing the powder gimmick still and whatnot, and the match ends with Evil doing the everything is evil on Tanahashi, of course. But Tanahashi, just as Evil comes to pin him, rolls him up, cradles him, and gets the surprise 3 count. So, good little crowd pleaser that helped elevate my own enjoyment of it, because I was like, yeah, okay, this, it's silly nonsense. And I think it was well positioned on the card as well. Between the TV title match, and then we had the title for title match that was coming after. I think this was a good buffer. 3.25 star for me on this one here. And after the match, the Katsuyori Shibata shows up in an AEW hoodie to chase off House of Torture, who were planning on doing nefarious deeds once again to Hiroshi Tanahashi, and then challenges Hiroshi Tanahashi to a match at Wrestle Dynasty the next day. So everyone's like, oh, all right. But then it was announced that it's going to be a 5-minute grapple match. So, New Japan is still deathly scared to have Shibata wrestle a full match. They're still terrified. They still will not endorse it. They're still, no. He's not doing a full match. His brain was removed from his head. He's not wrestling a full match. Besides, look, it's against, decrepit Tanahashi. It's fine. It'll be fine. I also thought it was interesting, and maybe I'm forgetting something in my, okay, I'm trying to say too many things at once. The commentary was putting over the fact that, this great friendship between the two and so on and so forth. And wasn't Tanahashi really resistant to Shibata coming back to New Japan because of how Shibata had left the company? Like when the company was starting to nosedive, he's like, okay, I'm out of here. And he comes back when everything's a little more smooth sailing. And Tanahashi, wasn't he resentful or something? And maybe there's something missing in my lore somewhere. Maybe I have a line spot where it's like, no, they reconciled because of the, because I know they had matches. They've had matches. But that's the deal, right? It's like you don't necessarily have to like someone to have a match with them. You know, you do something that pulls a little from reality, and then, you know, you got yourself something spicy. You know what I mean? Anyway, Konosuke Takeshita defeated Shingo Takagi to become a champ, retaining, of course, his international title over there from All Elite Wrestling, but also picking up the Never Openweight Championship. So I love this match, but not as much as I should have. Does that make sense? Like, here's a match I give 4.25 stars to, right? 4.25 stars to this match. And I can't help but feel underwhelmed. And because it's Takeshita and Takagi, and they should be having, you know, they should be blowing away everything else. They should be blowing the entire card out of the water. They should be like going out there and having a match where the main event guys in the meantime go, well, we're gonna have to try and beat that, you know, kind of thing. And while this match was tremendous, don't get me wrong, I loved the match. I felt like it didn't reach a high. Now, am I expressing an expectation? Or let me say that again. Am I allowing an expectation to taint a match that I otherwise enjoyed? Yes, I am. Because I think, like, even objectively, I think everyone was expecting something absolutely mind-bogglingly fuckingly great from these two guys, because they're both tremendous wrestlers. They're both great wrestlers. Like, Shingo today is probably still one of the top 10 best wrestlers in the world. I think we'd all agree with that. Takeshita as well. I'd even say Takeshita is one of the top 5 best wrestlers in the world today. So there was no reason for this to not, like, just mesh into this incredible thing. Did I overhype it in my mind? Maybe, but I also think it's realistic. I think it's a realistic expectation to have in regards to these two guys, where your baseline is like match of the night, you know? And it's not match of the night. So I go, like, I'm sure you know, it was good. That's the thing. It's like, I really don't have any qualms with it outside of, you know, me just being a little disappointed. It's a 4.25 match for me. 4.25 star match for me. Like, you know, they're beating the shit out of each other. They're doing lariats. They're doing superplexes. You got Konosuke doing the bastard driver and holding on to Shingo and transitioning right into a wheelbarrow German. It's like, this shit rules, man. You know, and it's hard hitting. There's the Made in Japan. There's this fucking nasty Last of the Dragon, right? Commentary was trying to cover, saying, oh, he didn't lift him up or whatever. You know, they didn't get him all right, correctly positioned on his shoulders. Well, maybe he shouldn't have done the move. Because Takeshita landed really hard on the back of his neck. It was tremendous stuff. I'm glad he was okay. They're trading poison ranas on each other. They're pelting each other with strikes all into the lead up for the end where Takeshita wins with the blazing fire, burning fire, raging fire, thundering fire. I can't remember the name. Sometimes I remember it, sometimes I don't. It's just one that, you know, the spinning suplex thing, spinning brain buster. Is it supposed to be a brain buster? I feel like it's more of a suplex. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Great stuff. Like, it's a great match. Here's the thing. If anything, you have a built-in rematch here. You have something that someone like me will go out of his way to watch once again. And again, my expectations were going to be high. They'll probably be a little higher because I'm like, all right, guys, now we gotta empty out the tank here. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I want. So Takeshita wins his first New Japan title They put that over quite a bit. Again, like I wouldn't be. Look, he being Takeshita, right? He's facing now. I'm recording this before Wrestle Dynasty, so maybe this is all going to be a moot point by the time you listen to this because Wrestle Dynasty will have passed. But he's going to be facing Tomohiro Ishii. I at least want to be on the record with this. There's really two ways. There's of course two ways this can go, and both make sense. Whereas Takeshita, Takeshita holding two belts makes a lot of sense, and he can travel to Japan. He can continue doing the international shtick, and then he can come back to New Japan at the same time and continue to wrestle. You can also belt up Ishii with both titles too. He's not a stranger to the Never title, and he's more than enough on AEW television. You know, AEW fans know exactly who he is. So if he were to come back with the international title, that would be significant. That would be a good thing. And even if he wants to hang around Japan with the international title for a while, that would probably be good for AEW as well, just to have that squirreled away for a little bit and, you know, do some long distance booking kind of thing without necessarily having to factor in plans right now, because I think the creative is a little scattered. So I think like both, you can make an argument for both guys to win tomorrow. I still think Takeshita is going to hang on to it. And at the very least, what might happen, I think the most plausible scenario is that Takeshita works the 6. He works New Year's Dash and then drops the Never title before heading back to the United States. Doesn't it kind of feel like Takeshita is getting a little, you know, VIP treatment from New Japan, that they're like rolling out the red carpet for him? He had a really good G1, you know, both in quality and in, you know, rankings. He had a very good G1. They've invited him back in the meantime, and he was on Wrestle Kingdom, you know, in a prime spot. And he, as they like to say, doesn't even go there. This is, yeah, look, this is starting to feel like a soft jump. Of course, the contract situation in the United States is not the same as in Japan, so he still has to wait out whatever time he has left on his contract with AEW before doing any other moves. But we had heard, you know, earlier in 2024 that Takeshita wasn't necessarily happy with how things were going down in AEW, like how he was being handled. Can't say I necessarily blame him either. I think one of the reasons for the international title win was to help appease that. He's been wrestling a lot, he's a good ambassador for AEW, don't get me wrong. But listen, in an environment like I've been talking about, you know, in this review, especially towards the start, in an environment where New Japan is looking for its new guys to step up and really be the ball carriers for this new generation, a guy like Konosuke Takeshita, who has all the tools and who understands the mandate of a big match and who can deliver quality matches every time and on big stages, on big levels. We've seen it multiple times with multiple opponents. I'm New Japan and I'm like, hey, we'll take care of you here. We'll give you a spot. And you bring him in, and I think you have an instant credible challenger. You have an instant credible challenger for whoever's at the top of the card. And no one would blink twice if you decided to belt him up and make him IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. No one would go, what a weird choice. They'd be like, fuck yeah, it's Konosuke Takeshita. So you're opening yourself up to quality matches. You don't have to, you can still build your guys as you want them to, you know, into the finished products that you need. But Takeshita is right there. He's Japanese. Look, I'm not saying it's absolutely 100% going to happen, but I am going to say that it's a distinct possibility, and it sort of feels that way. I'd keep an eye on it. I don't know how much time Takeshita has left on his contract. I don't know. And I haven't checked either. We're talking off the cuff here. So there's no research behind this. But, you know, I'm pretty sure New Japan would like to go, yeah, you know what? You wooed Okada and Ospreay away from us. We're gonna woo Takeshita away from you. Then the next match was El Desperado, where he he successfully he successfully won the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship. I don't know if he took it really from Doki, who an absolutely gruesome injury, where you saw it on the replay, where he's doing a seated senton off the top rope to the floor, and his left arm, I believe, it sort of lands awkwardly against his weight, and it just bends into a position that arms aren't supposed to bend in, and that's it. He breaks it, and they stop the match about 5 minutes in, and that sucks. That sucks because you could tell they were ready to beat the piss out of each other, and I was really into it. And that's a real crying shame. It's a crying shame because I think we were cheated out of a really good match, and it's a real crying shame because Doki is this is going to be the cap on a really good 2024 for him, like a 2024 that went beyond his expectations, anyone's expectations really, where he finally, you know, gets the junior title and people are excited for it, and he shows up and he delivers. He has great matches. It's such a bad way to cap off that reign. You know, I don't know if Despe was scheduled to win the belt regardless, but you know, this is where we're at right now. It's unfortunate. I hope the injury is not too serious, but man, the way that arm bent, that's wasn't great. So hopefully he gets back on his feet quickly. Yota Tsuji defeated David Finlay to become the new IWGP Global Heavyweight Champion. This match ruled. This is my favorite match of the card. I don't know if this is the consensus or not, but for me, this was a 4.5 star match. Okay, so my talking points are this for this match here. David Finlay has been having a sneaky great 2024. I think he had I covered him throughout the G1 again this year. His work is always great. His work is all like his technical work. It is always great. And this persona that they've kind of leaned into, maybe not persona, this style that they've leaned into of him being, you know, absurdly strong for his size or whatever. It works because he works that, you know, the thing is that you don't expect him to be as good, as strong as he is, because he doesn't look that strong, right? But it works for him perfectly. Like, it's been just like spot on, excellent work that he's been, and he was spot on great in this match. Throwing Yota Tsuji around like that, like those are some phenomenal visuals. Those 3 dominators back to back, phenomenal visuals where you're just like, oh wow. And I think Tsuji delivered on his end as well. You know, I know I feel like in the lead up to this, there are more and more people who are losing faith in Yota Tsuji. And I recently, if I remember correctly, was kind of like, man, I'm not sure about Tsuji. I think, you know, I'm very close, very, very close to not dismissing him, but classifying him as a vibes guy, where he comes in, he has the look, he has the feel, he has the smile, and you're like, oh, look at this superstar. But then when the bell rings, it's like mid, you know. He nonetheless super delivered here. Like, I thought he really super delivered. Even though his offense is very, look, all wrestlers have their patterns, right? They all have their patterns, the routines. Every wrestler has them. But you also expect them sometimes to sort of break from that and do other stuff, which is something David Finlay does, because he has his patterns too, but he breaks from them. He keeps things interesting and fresh and vicious. And I don't feel that from Yota. Yota is, this match sort of restored some faith that had kind of eroded, but I'm not like suddenly screaming at the top of my lungs, this is the guy, right? I think he still has the potential to be the guy. I still think he's one of the more interesting prospects that New Japan has, if only because of his charisma, because of what he gives off, right? But it's exactly like I was saying, when I define a vibes guy, is that the vibes guy is going to have, in a big match position, he's going to show up. And then for his other matches, well, he's gonna go soft. He's not gonna press as hard down on the gas. He's gonna go a little softer. He's gonna, not tear the house down every night. That's usually how I define a vibes guy. So this was a big match. It was a big spot for him, and it was a big singles win for him. Big singles title, which I believe is his first singles title in New Japan as well, correct as well. So, of course you're going to show up for that. Of course you're going to want to tear the house down for that. You're going to want people to remember the match and talk about it positively and, pat you on the back and whatnot. So let's see the rest. Let's see what the body of work here moving forward is going to be like. Maybe this is the motivator that he needs. Maybe this is the thing that is going to sort of spark things. But at some point, and I wrote it down here in my notes, I was watching David Finlay wrestle and throwing him around and doing the power bombs and buckle bombing them and then I'm like, what if Yota Tsuji worked Dave Finlay's offense? And wouldn't that just be spectacular? Don't get me wrong. I get it. This guy went to Mexico and he does some spectacular stuff. Some very acrobatic, agile stuff for a guy his size. I get it. That's an attribute as well. I'm not saying that his moveset stinks. Yes, I'm a nerd. I use the term moveset. But when it comes to when I look at Dave Finlay's offense and Yoda's size and his overall girth and his charisma and what he projects, I feel like he's a guy who projects more. I'm going to do 3 consecutive dominators on you than here's a Hurricane Rana. That's what Tsuji projects more. So it kind of makes you wonder if he just tweaked his offense to be more power based than than making use of his lucha stuff. Maybe this would be like the connective tissue that we need between Yota Tsuji, the guy, and Yota Tsuji, the top guy. Maybe this is what's missing here. I'm just spitballing here. No, I thought this was great. I thought this was great. We're kicking out of stuff, and Tsuji blocks the overkill, does a power bomb, and then does the Gene Blast. Gene Blast for the win. 4.5 stars for this match. Probably, no, actually, very likely. And actually is in fact my match of the night. And then we had Tetsuya Naito defeating Hiromu Takahashi in the special singles semi-main event match. We talked about the business aspects of it earlier on. So, this match is 5 years too late. This is and I don't think it's a hot take. I'm pretty sure a lot of people came up to the same conclusion that this match it is just arrived 5 years too late. Had we got this when it was supposed to happen, I think would have been tons better than this. Now, Tetsuya Naito is, he's being held together by tape. And I understand that there's a lot of I myself, I'm an LIJ guy and I love Tetsuya Naito. But, my love for the group and my love for Tetsuya Naito can't cover the fact that this guy's being held together by he's stitched together. He's about to fall apart. You can physically see it in the match that he can't do it. He's not there anymore. He doesn't have the snap. He's slow. He's a little sloppy. He's always had a level of sloppy, but that good level of sloppy that I often talk about, when I talk about Mercedes Moné, I'm she's sloppy, but it works for her. It's the same thing with Naito. It's sloppy, but it works for him. Here now it's just to the detriment of everyone, and he's slow. It's as if he's his destinos. They fucking take It takes like an ice age for them to warm over, for them to finally connect, as if, he doesn't want to whiff them anymore. So instead he just takes his time, and everything's a destino. I don't understand. It's like, Walter Stewart, who by the way is tremendous, don't get me wrong, but like we got to have a consensus here. Like the destinos, like everything is a destino. And I'm like, what the fuck? Why is everything a destino? Not everything is a destino. And it's like in the main event when Shota Umino is doing double underhook stuff. Like everything that has a double underhook is suddenly a Death Rider. And I'm like, this is not a Death Rider. Like not everything has to be a Death Rider. Like cut it out, It's like not everything is. Not only does it not need to be, but not everything is. Like there's a move. There's one time in the main event, Shota Umino does I think it's literally like, didn't he do like a butterfly suplex off an avalanche one? And Walker Stewart outright called it, avalanche Death Rider. I'm like, no, he didn't. It's not because it's a DDT. It's a double underhook like DDT thing. That's what it is. The Dirty Deeds. It's the Dirty Deeds. That's a good name for a finisher. That will always be a good name for the finisher. Will always be better than Paradigm Shift. The Dirty Deeds. The Dirty Deeds will always have been a good name for a finisher. The Dirty Deeds. Anyway, there were a lot of dirty deeds in this match here. And look, Hiromu, I don't know. Hiromu was he covering for him? I don't know. Like there was just nothing here. There was nothing. This is a match where I go 3 stars because I don't know. Do I go lower than that? It wasn't bad. Like it wasn't terrible. And the work was there. The effort was there. And I guess the crowd was into it. And you see, here's the thing. I didn't even think the crowd was all that into it either. Us talking about how big of a match this was. But I think because it was 5 years too late, I think the audience were excited at the idea of the match. But then when they saw the match, they were like, wait a second, this kind of stinks. This is kind of not good. I mean, I could be wrong, right? But I think I think I'm right. Of course, I should think I'm right. But I think I'm right because it's overall an issue that a lot of fans in pro wrestling have, where there's the idea of a match will superimpose, what the reality is going to be. And this is based off of nostalgia. This is based off of, pure fandom favorites and so on and so forth. But when you take it apart logically, you're like, well, this maybe wasn't exactly the best call, It's like, when you start doing throwback matches for wrestlers who are past their prime, and I'm not saying any guy, I'm just throwing this out there. I'm not saying Naito and Hiromu are past their prime. Well, I think Naito's past his prime. I think that's pretty clear, but I'm not applying this specifically to this match. This reasoning here is, the example I want to give here is you have 2 wrestlers who are past their prime who come together for a match. Fans get excited. They buy tickets. They tune in. And the match is sort of like, And in the past, if they have had better matches, so wouldn't we have just been better off going back to watch the old match? But then again, this is something I talked about recently, actually. It's like, when it comes to nostalgia, particularly in wrestling, nostalgia, to me, somewhere always connects to wanting to recapture a feeling, right? You want to recapture what you were feeling at a time because it made you feel so good in anything, right? Like, I'm not just pro wrestling, but I think, but in pro wrestling, it's particularly there, where you have this idea where, let's say in 2020, like in 2024, you're like, let's have Goldberg versus Hogan again, because man, the vibes I got, when they packed the Georgia Dome in 98, I think, wasn't it 98? When they packed the Georgia Dome, man, that was such a great feeling. But then you do it again, and then you're like, no, Goldberg and Hogan both stink. They're terrible now. They can't wrestle. No one should see that match. No one should watch that match. No one should want that match, but you're just trying to recapture that. And the wrestlers, they're like, yeah, let's do it again. Because wrestlers are all about recapturing that magic, that moment, that thing that they felt at that specific moment. You know, they want to relive that. This idea that Naito is somehow going to be great forever and is still currently like this great wrestler is kind of preposterous. And we're kind of reaching a point where he'd be better served just letting the body of work speak for itself, as opposed to whatever he's trying to do now. But I also understand the conundrum they're in, because Tetsuya Naito is still like one of their biggest, we're going to say one of their biggest now because of the attendance at Wrestle Kingdom, but he's still one of their biggest drawing stars. What are they going to do with, so are you just going to tell him to stop wrestling? No. In fact, what you're going to do is you're going to put him in a tag team with Hiromu Takahashi, and you're going to throw him into the IWGP World Championship match, World Tag Team Championship match at Wrestle Dynasty against the Bucks and the United Empire, which will be Great O'Khan and Jeff Cobb. They announced that it was going to be Jeff Cobb, his partner. And we're going to make that into a three-way, and that way the Bucks won't have to win. And the titles are going to go on Hiromu and Naito, and you can keep booking Naito on cards, and Naito won't have to work all alone these extra long matches. He'll be able to share the workload with Hiromu. Because honestly, it's smart. That's what you do. But like singles guy Tetsuya Naito, we'll talk about it later on in the year, but if he's in the G1 this year, I'm going to be a little shocked. I'm going to be a little surprised. Anyway, this was my least favorite match on the show. I'm ambivalent on the rating. 3. Like it wasn't like a disaster. I'm talking like it was a disaster, but it wasn't. But it's more like maybe expectation versus reality. But my expectations weren't even that high as some other people were. This was a good match 5 years ago. 2025, no fucking way. There was no way they were going to be able to pull this off. Tetsuya Naito's broken down. He's broken down, and we just have to come to admit this. Yes, he's got the vibes. Yes, it's Tetsuya Naito. Yep, so on and so forth. He's cool. Whatever attachment you have to him, I believe you are better off I believe you're better off hunting down, rewatching your favorite matches from him, reliving those moments, as opposed to whatever he is now. If anything, it's going to be more detrimental. And we're gonna be here, and we're gonna be talking about Tetsuya Naito's downfall moving forward. Every time he's gonna be in a match. At least they're gonna do something smart with him, like I said, which is gonna be to put him in a tag team where he'll be able to split the workload. He won't have to do the main events. We won't be wondering if we're gonna get we won't be wondering if we're going to get main event Naito, if we're going to get big match Naito, because we didn't get big match Naito at Wrestle Kingdom. Or if that's what's left of big match Naito, don't ever expect anything more than this out of him then. I don't know what the percentage, to me, this wasn't big match Naito. Didn't feel like it. If it was, oh boy, we're in trouble. There you go. Those are my thoughts. That's my review of Wrestle Kingdom 18. Like I said, a good show, but not a great one. I would say 3 really good matches on the top tier matches. The Yota Tsuji title win, the Iwatani Azumi match, which was also tremendous. And Takeshita versus Shingo. Don't let my review make you feel like it was a bad match, because it really wasn't. It was great. Just a little beneath my expectations. Is there anything here you absolutely have to watch? Look, I think this is a good show. Stuff that you can skip is very easily, and I think I pointed it out. I think you should watch the show. It's a good little wrestling show. You won't be pulling your hair out. It's a good show. But if you really, really are strapped for time, I think the only match that really demands your attention that is Suji and Finlay, if only to see how great Dave Finlay is. That I think this was truly a showcase of how great David Finlay is as a wrestler in 2025. There you go. So there you go. That should wrap everything up. And Wrestle Kingdom 19, it's in the books, baby. And now it is time to review Wrestle Dynasty, the big New Japan, AEW, CMLL, Ring of Honor, STARDOM show that happened the day after Wrestle Kingdom on January 5th, 2025. The first big collab between, all of these partner promotions in Japan. A big night. Look, I'll give you the cliff notes, and of course we're going to get into detail because this is what it is. It's the review. We're going to break all of this down. Cliff notes are this. This was a great show. This was a show that sets the bar for the rest of the year as far as great pro wrestling shows should be. This was absolutely tremendous. Top to bottom, just fantastic stuff. Couple of, maybe a little hit and a miss here, but nothing significant enough in the grand scheme of this show, which just blew me away. I thought it was a fantastic show. And on top of that, you get an all-timer match on this. You get a match that and there's even another match that, had it not been for the all-timer, would be the match we'd all be talking about today, like at the top of of all of our reviews and blog posts and articles and whatnot. Like, just a fantastic show of pro wrestling. It's the kind of thing that once it's done, you sit back, you think about it for a fraction of a second, and you're like, God damn, pro wrestling is great. Like, these are the types of shows that just reignite your passion, reassure you that the business of pro wrestling is still good and can be good, and at the same time frustrates you because then it kind of exposes just how much wrestling companies, wrestlers, promoters get in their own way instead of just putting on the best stuff possible every single time. It was just a phenomenal show that I'm so glad I caught live. I mean, look, it started good it started at a good time for, old bones Hayes here. Starting at 11. Well, the pre-show started at 10 p.m. Eastern. I was like, okay, I can commit. I can go. Like, I can hit the sack at around 3 a.m. Right, whatever. And it's the holidays. Still for me, I still have some time off. I've got time to recuperate. My Sunday will be a little more. It'll be a little more touch and go. May have a nap here, a nap there. might just have to make sure that everything is may have to make sure that my energy levels get a little assistance, right? But other than that, I'm so glad that I watched it live. I'm so glad that I'm swatting the microphone. That's how excited I am. That's how excited I am to talk about the show. And this show, which, look, let's just go ahead and say it, this was a show that felt like a Wrestle Kingdom show. Like, this had the vibes, the energy, the talent, the delivery, the execution, the matches to make it feel like a Wrestle Kingdom show. This show felt more like a Wrestle Kingdom show than Wrestle Kingdom did. Now, look, if you watched both like I did, it's clear that this is a that the result here was umpteen times better. Like, this is a better show than Wrestle Kingdom. All right. The Wrestle Dynasty show ended up being a much better show than Wrestle Kingdom. I reviewed Wrestle Kingdom. We don't have to go over it. If you're listening to this on the podcast, well, you know what my thoughts are already on that. We've already covered it. But I think this, maybe as a little footnote to my Wrestle Kingdom review here, this show, I think, underscores even more in how much of a rebuilding period they are. And I not even rebuilding, like a rebirth period New Japan is in, right? Without bringing back all the, the tired points that I myself use quite a bit about, top talent leaving, top talent, being in poor physical states and not having a real set of young guys to carry immediately the company into a new era, without having to rehash all those points in detail. That's the underlying theme. You look at a match like this that has a lot of accomplished professional wrestlers who understand the mandate of what they need to be doing, going out there, performing, wrestling. That's the whole difference between having guys and gals on the card who know exactly what they need to do and how to deliver it, as opposed to, having guys that are still trying to find their footing and not quite sure what their identity is, or, to a degree, you can even wonder, who are not quite even sure if they like professional wrestling to begin with. Sometimes it makes you wonder. But we're going to get into the show specifically, this fantastic pay-per-view event. Well, it wasn't even pay-per-view. It was, you have your New Japan World subscription, and there you go. Like, I'm sorry if you paid $50 on Triller or whatever it is, whatever it costs on Triller. I'm sorry if you did. All you had to do was pay, $10 on New Japan World, and you had access to both nights. I'm sorry if you did the Triller thing. I really am, unless you had very specific reasons on doing it. Anyway, we're not getting into it. We're already being sidetracked. Before we get into the show itself, business talk. The Tokyo Dome on January 5th, 2025 had an estimated 16,300 people in attendance, and no, that's not good. Like, that's not a good number. We did as we talked about on the Wrestle Kingdom review, we did, if memory serves me right, I don't have the number right in front of me, but about like around 24,000 people for Wrestle Kingdom, which was already like 3,000 people down from Wrestle Kingdom 18 last year in 2024. When the show was over 27,000 people. Now we're down to 23,000 people for Wrestle Kingdom this year. Again, I don't think anyone was super surprised about it, but not cracking 20K for Wrestle Dynasty, that might be a little more concerning. And I think it is concerning to the point that New Japan owner Takaki Kidani, who is, as you know, the CEO of Bushiroad, was very candid with his disappointment in the performance of the show. And our boy Chris Samsa over at sportofprowrestling.com had a little translation, little write-up that he posted on the Everything app. And in the post, he summarizes the major talking points that Kidani gave to Tokyo Sports. He gave a brief interview yesterday, or at least after the show, depending on your time zone. It is the 5th today. As I'm recording this, I am recording this on the 5th, and the show, I started watching the show on the 4th. Time zones, man. It's just a wacky concept. Let me read through some of the points here as per recorded by Chris Samsa. Takaki Kidani expressed that the attendance figures for the Tokyo Dome events this weekend were disappointing. He has set a goal to attract 40,000 attendees to the Tokyo Dome on January 4 of next year. Kidani aims to feature several special matches on that date, in addition to Hiroshi Tanahashi's retirement match. He believes that this year's attendance challenge are a result of growing pains as New Japan Pro Wrestling transitions to a new generation. However, he noted that they are losing fans to traditional sports such as basketball and volleyball. I did not know volleyball was a thing in Japan. Like a professional thing, like something that you'd tune in, like a league, that you'd tune in to watch pro volley. I didn't know that was a thing. I know it was practiced. I didn't know it was that big a thing. A significant part of the challenge is attracting international interest in their events. That's a hell of a challenge. Before we go any further, let's break down a little bit the information that we got here, or at least before we go any further, let me share some thoughts here. How refreshing and bold is it for a pro wrestling company executive to be so candid about how he feels things performed this year, right? Anyone else, like in the history of professional wrestling, you would not have a promoter. And I know Kidani's a CEO. He's not a promoter, okay? And I understand this, but let's just bear with me here. In the context of pro wrestling, you would have never had a promoter come out and say, yeah, we did really terrible numbers. They'd try to find some kind of spin or would outright not talk about it, right? It's like the Bloodsport Japan show that happened in Cork Hall. For some reason, last year, right? For some reason, the attendance has never been revealed. I wonder why. So there's something very novel about this, and that I appreciate. And we won't have to sit here and speculate like we usually do. Oh, well, this number here, they drew 13,000. They can't be happy about that. Whatever. Now we know, we flat out know. He says it. Look, these numbers were disappointing, and that would have been my take regardless. 16,300 in the Tokyo Dome? Hell yeah! Yes, this is disappointing. These are worse than COVID numbers. It's not good. But to hear it come from the mouth of one of the owners of the company, the president of Bushi Road, that's a jolt to the system. That's something where it's like, okay, this is significant. And you have to wonder now, I know Japanese business culture isn't the same here as in North America. But if you're a CEO and you come out and you start talking about how, your company is not doing well, underperforming, not meeting targets, it's usually a bad omen. It's usually not a good thing, especially if it's a publicly traded company. Stocks are going to go, the outlook is not going to be great. And, it could unfortunately lead to layoffs and whatnot. So I don't know how typical it is for a Japanese CEO to, say in an interview, yeah, you know what? We underperformed and we're not happy about it. And it's not great. We have, there's a lot of challenges that we have to overcome, but yeah, next year we're setting the bar really, really fucking high. And we've got a year to double almost 1.75 more, whatever, right? Because we did 24,000 at Wrestle Dynasty, at Wrestle Kingdom, excuse me. We basically have to, we have to try and get this back on track. So I don't know if this is a bad thing. I don't know if this is an omen of ill tidings. Does this mean that New Japan talent is going to have to take another pay cut. Like this is all the kind of stuff that you don't hear much about, because this stuff doesn't get leaked much because it happens in Japanese, and the Japanese guys don't talk to they don't talk to the reporters in the sheets here in North America. They don't, because of the language barrier. It's just as simple as that. Why is it that we hear about, we hear a lot about, and this is every year, by the way, because I don't know if you know this, but contracts, talent contracts in Japan usually come up at the start of the year. So whenever you start hearing so-and-so's contract is coming up, at the start of 2025, when it comes to New Japan talent, it's like, yes, like a lot of guys, their deals come up at this time of year. So it's not a surprise. And you always hear that it's like Dave Finlay, that it's Gabe Kidd. You always, and a couple of years ago it was Jay White. And you always hear that these people, that you always hear like the foreigners, the Gaijin wrestlers, those are the guys you hear that their contracts are coming up, because they're the ones talking to the sheets. They're the ones, leaking the info about their contract information. But, fucking Tetsuya Naito's not going to reach out to, Mike Johnson and say, hey, my contract is coming up. He's not going to do that for multiple reasons. And one of them being the language barrier, which is real. The point I started to make before veering off here a little bit is that it has happened. And I believe it happened last year that, a lot of the talent took pay cuts. And from what I understand in Japanese business, it's not an unusual thing for staff and even executives to take pay cuts on years that the company is not performing well. Like, it's not an unusual thing. I think a Japanese company prefers to do that than perform outright firings. But look, again, I want to preface these very heavily by saying I think. I really don't know enough, and maybe I'm speaking right through, I'm speaking through my hat right now. I don't have all the background information on this. I couldn't tell you. So, this is something to keep your ear to the ground and listen to what's going to happen moving forward. Like, if the boss of your boss is saying, yeah, these things didn't go well, you're damn sure that someone's being called into a boardroom on January 7th, right? Because the 6th is, is New Year's Dash. Someone's being called into the boardroom on the 7th, and we're going to have a long talk about KPIs and whatnot. And I wouldn't even be surprised that Kidani dropped the 40,000 attendees for 2026 without consulting anyone, with just being like, no, like this is untenable. This is bad. We are going to put 40,000. And he just like publicly put his entire operation on notice, right? I'm sure there's a couple of high-placed people in New Japan were very, very surprised to hear this. Is it realistic or not? Sometimes it doesn't matter. Sometimes the CEO has to kick some dirt around, and so that shit'll get done. So this is the kind of interview you put a pin in, that we might talk about, further as we get further and further down the road this year. It's like we might harken back to this, but anyway. All right, let's keep reading here, because I do want to get to reviewing the show. Kidani suggests that it might be more beneficial to hold another joint show with AEW in Japan, but at a time further removed from January 4th. He believes that the previous event did not successfully convey the atmosphere of a joint event or establish a sense of rivalry, resulting in a lackluster conclusion. So that's interesting, right? He's clearly thinking that doing the joint show right up with Wrestle Kingdom was not a good idea, and probably diluted a little bit the importance of Wrestle Kingdom, which was, I wouldn't say a concern, but something that a lot of observers had been, scratching their chin and it's like, well, will this hurt sales or so on and so forth? So maybe he's seeing it this way. He's clearly not close to the idea of working again with New Japan, with AEW, excuse me, but maybe not so close to Wrestle Kingdom, maybe a little later in the year. And he's clearly saying it should be better built. We should have established some sort of rivalry or something. And when he says resulting in a lackluster conclusion, I don't know if he means conclusion to the show, right? Like creatively, the performance. I don't know if he means that the ending of the show wasn't to his expectations, or if he means the conclusion, or if by the conclusion he means the attendance, right? Which is, maybe this is something that's kind of lost in translation. I'm just basing myself off of Chris's translation and understanding of the interview. Now, the last little bit we're going to talk about before moving on, I promise there's a review in here somewhere, is this little tidbit. I'm going to read directly again from Chris's post. Kidani has indicated that he believes that Konosuke Takeshita has signed a 1-year contract with New Japan Pro Wrestling. He noted that AEW holds a limited number of events compared to New Japan Pro Wrestling, suggesting that if Takeshita desires to be a leading wrestler for NJPW, that opportunity may very well be available to him. Let's just get the Takeshita talking point out of the way, right? Because Takeshita at the press conference flat out said, I have a contract with New Japan Pro Wrestling. So I have 3 contracts. I have one with DDT, I have one with AEW, and I have New Japan Pro Wrestling, which essentially would make him, I believe, I believe that that would make him the first professional wrestler like in history to hold a contract with 3 different promotions at the same time. Look, you listen to my stuff, I've been advocating over the past few weeks for more Takeshita in New Japan. And I even think that it would probably be the better move for his career to go have a full-time gig in New Japan. I don't think AEW is necessarily the best place for him in the current environment. If I were him and I had an open door for New Japan, I'd go there because I think New Japan recognizes that they need a guy like him, and that he would deliver and ultra deliver on top of everything that he's on top of everything that New Japan is doing right now. He would be a fresh face, safe guy that they could absolutely use to help raise raise the ships because of the tide, or whatever the expression is. I can't remember what it was. I can never remember what that expression is. It always comes to mind, but I kind of remember like bits of that idiom. It's like the rising tide lifts all ships, right? Isn't that it? Rising tide lifts all ships. That's Konosuke Takeshita. He's a rising tide, and the ships is everyone else. And I think New Japan realizes they could benefit from him being so young on top of that. And Takeshita I think he'd benefit tremendously. Like, I think he would have a much better time elevating himself and establishing his legacy in a place like New Japan as opposed to AEW. That we've already been over. So when I heard that he had the contract, I was like, okay, this is good news. Like, to me, this is good news. And I've been sort of, rubbing my hands together and go, "Ooh, are we going to have a soft jump here? Is this the idea?" It's something you see in Japan a lot, but not in the United States, not in North America, because things are not built the same way. It's not culturally, as far as wrestling goes, it's not the same thing. But I'm kind of like, oh, isn't this interesting? And now Takeshita has this contract apparently. So, but then I'm like, okay, maybe this is a work. Right? Despite me wanting to come here and take a victory lap and say, hey, I told you so, I told you all, I'm kind of, maybe it's just a good old fashioned work. Maybe this is just the work. Maybe it's just old take soup, taka soup, He's just, he's just working. He's just working us all. Maybe, but president of Bushiroad, who is not a promoter and has nothing to do with the wrestling business. Like he's a CEO of a big company. Like he has no time for this fucking nonsense. He deals with facts. He deals with things like he has no time to go out there and say, let's work the sheets, brother. That's not the... So this adds a lot of credence to this situation, to this reality that Konosuke Takeshita might actually have a true to form contract with New Japan and with AEW at the same time on top of DDT. So it'll be interesting to follow. I'm going to continue keeping an eye on this, but so yeah, my vibe that we're setting up a soft jump here. I can still feel it. Let's see how things progress. Maybe in a couple of months things will happen. I'm like, I've cooled down on this, but I'm still very bullish on this. I still sincerely believe that New Japan Pro Wrestling needs Konosuke Takeshita much more than AEW needs Konosuke Takeshita. And I think it, search your heart. You know it to be true. Like regardless of how you feel about Takeshita and how much you like him in AEW and doing great things and having great matches, search your feelings. You know it's true. AEW does not need Konosuke Takeshita as much as New Japan Pro Wrestling does in this snapshot that we have right here at the start of 2025. Again, let's have this discussion in a couple of months. But I am completely okay with a bidding war for Konosuke Takeshita, or at least him looking out for himself and going, you know what? Thank you for the opportunity, Tony Khan. I'll swing back around in a couple of years and let's chat. But as it stands right now, I can go make a name for myself over here, like a legit big time name. That's it for the business aspect of things. Very candid thoughts. Very curious to see how all of this is gonna shake out. But as it stands right now, you're here for a review, not the fucking Wall Street Journal, right? We're not talking. This isn't The Economist. What's another one? It doesn't matter. Like Forbes is still no, but like. Real Forbes, not, fucking nonsense Forbes. You know what Forbes I'm talking about. Forbes is even a thing. Is The Economist even still a thing? I know the wall. Anyway, let's talk fun stuff. Let's talk these matches. Let's talk this card. I've already given you my big picture thoughts. I'm not even wondering how we're going to approach this. We got to start with the lead. We got to start by talking about Kenny Omega defeating Gabe Kidd. Second match from the top. Special singles match, no titles, no nothing, just a good old-fashioned grudge. Just a good old-fashioned, I don't like you and what you represent, and I don't like you because, you're a little loudmouth little prick. I think it's tremendous. I think the build to this was a blast, and it got all the right people, angry. Gabe Kidd played his part to a T. There's still people that are mauling over the idea of Kenny Omega having his big return match in Japan, right? But but we all know why this happened, right? We all know why Kenny Omega did this because AEW is such a terrible partner to New Japan, like the worst, like the dirt worst, that AEW would concede having Kenny Omega's return match from a life-threatening condition in which we wondered if he'd ever wrestle again. Hasn't even touched a wrestling ring in a year. AEW is such a terrible partner that they conceded to allow Kenny to have his return match on Japanese soil as opposed to North American soil for this event, right? Such a bad way, just terrible. what a shit thing to do, right? Just a inconsiderate partner. This match was tremendous. Like, regardless of the bill, I don't want to talk about the bill too much. And we're past that now, because now we were presented with an all-time great match, one of the easiest 5-star matches you will ever give 5 stars to. Like, this is so simple, so easy to give it to this incredible match. Incredible match. Let's talk about it a bit. Babyface Gabe Kidd in this match just blows my mind. Sticking up for New Japan. This was the build the whole time, right? And was meant to get the AEW fans pissed off. You know, they wanted to create this sense of rivalry, right? But of course, like, you know, online fans are so tribal mode, you know, they can't make the difference between getting worked, you know, something part of a storyline, and reality. So everyone got really, so there's a lot of people, I don't want to say a lot of people, I don't want to say everyone, but a lot of people took this very much to heart because they have these weird relationships with these people they don't know. And especially, you know, hey, you're talking shit about Kenny Omega. Oh, watch out, you know, Kenny Omega is a protected class. You got to be careful. You got to be careful what you say about Kenny Omega, because he's this saintly figure, and everyone knows him. Like, everyone is best friends with Kenny Omega. So his whole thing was, you know, he's shitting on AEW. You know, he's basically saying out loud what a lot of New Japan fans, especially the North American fans, are saying about AEW. You know, so, you know, they're creating this sense of rivalry, and I appreciate that. And he comes to the ring, Gabe Kidd, War Dogs, a guy who's like, you know, throwing tables around and just beating the piss out of people and, you know, not obeying any rules. He comes out. He wants to stick up for New Japan. You know, and he takes off his tracksuit pants, and he's got his gear on with a big fucking lion mark on it. Big, huge lion mark. He's got his War Dogs logo on one side, and then the New Japan lion mark right there. And what they zoom into it as he does it. What happens to the crowd? The crowd audibly gasps, and they start cheering for him. Like, he's right there. He's got him in the palm of his hand right from the get-go. All of these fans in the Tokyo Dome are ready to cheer their champ, their representative, their guy, Gabe Kidd, above Kenny Omega, who a lot of them know and loved from the days of that Kenny called New Japan his home, his stomping grounds. And he comes out, Kenny, not to be outclassed, of course, another epic entrance. You know, he's got the gear, he's got the new music composed by Masayoshi Soken, right? Who was of course, legendary video game composer, right? Music composer, I should say. Final Fantasy games, like 14? Did he do another one? I think he did another one. I like the later Final Fantasy games. I'm not so, but I know he did 14 because 14 is generally regarded for its high quality soundtrack. And he comes out looking like Kenny Omega, like a fucking superstar. He's got the gear on. He's battle ready. It's like, you know, and they wrestle in an incredible piece of business that pushed back any expectations I think anyone could have had regarding this match. You know, you want Kenny Omega. It's Kenny Omega. You come in, it's like, okay, well, this match is going to be good, right? But we go above and beyond. You know, it's like you expect a great match out of Kenny, but that's what this is what you get. You get an excellent match, just a great professional wrestling match, and they're going around. Like, it starts out fierce. They're playing off the fact that they hate each other from the start. And it's fierce to begin with. They're throwing, they're doing the feeling out, but then at some point, like, they can't wait to just start wailing on each other, and they do, you know, and it works. Even if Kenny is not necessarily known for, you know, the stand-up, you know, striking game, you know, it all connected, it all worked, and they're destroying the ringside area afterwards. You know, they're gushing blood. especially Kenny. Gabe dried up at some point. At some point he was, and I throughout this match, I was just flabbergasted at the big reactions that Gabe was getting for defending the honor of New Japan. And he's a heel in this company, but he decided to position himself as the champ, as the winner, as the guy. But the fans got behind him. They got behind his philosophy, his love for New Japan. It's almost as if they needed a champion. It's almost as if they needed someone to define that New Japan is good and in a good spot, and that there's pride in New Japan. It's almost as if all the other guys that we've been trying to build here haven't been able to convey that sense of pride, albeit maybe in a more subtle fashion. Gabe Kidd had to be in your face about it. I mean, that's the only way Gabe Kidd knows how to do things, right? He's not subtle. I don't think anyone will ever accuse Gabe Kidd of being subtle. But I think this is also an undercurrent where it's I think New Japan fans were craving the concept of having an identity again and having someone who could champion this on, right? We had Antonio Inoki. He passed away. Inoki, well, at least New Japan, by hook or by crook, passed it to Kazuchika Okada, right? Who became the standard bearer of New Japan, right? The Raw 50th anniversary year and so on and so forth. He was the guy. And then he fucks off. Sure, we've got Hiroshi Tanahashi, but maybe you want someone who can still go. I think everyone understands that Hiroshi Tanahashi is physically on his, on his last legs. And now we got it here. I think I think there's something there to tap into. There's something there that shows a deficiency that New Japan has cultivated over the past few years. Anyway, look, ultimately, the match, just incredible stuff. Incredible stuff. The power bomb through the table was insane. The two tables on the flip side, right, over the barricades. Just tremendous stuff. Gabe he flew. Kenny threw him. It was amazing. And then the springboard swan dive by Kenny. That just you're he's never going to make it, but he makes it. It's just nuts. It's just crazy. This is Kenny Omega. I don't know if you realize this. His last match was in December 2023. That's the last time he got into a wrestling ring. It was in December 2023, and he didn't wrestle for an entire calendar year because he had a life-threatening condition that needed immediate attention. And he does whatever he needs to get done. He fights back, he comes back, and he looks and he wrestles like the cleaner always had. The speed, the bursts, the sharpness, the snap, it's Kenny Omega. I swear to God, you were to fold over time and it'd be just between 2023 and 2025, and it'd be just it's the same guy. Nothing's changed. It's still the same guy. And there was a lot of plunder, there was a lot of DQ stuff, but this was not a smoke and mirrors match. You know how we often see, wrestlers who might not be able to go as much. What do they often do? They'll fall into the plunder matches, because with a plunder match, you don't have to work as much. There's some stuff that you can defer directly to, using kendo sticks and, hardcore items and, or cookie sheets, whatever the fuck. And that's usually to cover up some weaknesses. Don't get me wrong. This is not what happened here. The plunder that was here, the tables, the violence that was here, just help enhance this match. It was part of the story. We were not trying to cover for Kenny not being able to go, because Kenny went and as strong as you would expect him to. In this match that had passion, it had heart, it had violence, like it had all of this, because this was a meeting of two guys who live, love, and breathe professional wrestling. Two guys who have completely dedicated themselves to this. We don't need to walk down the path of Kenny Omega. It's been covered, it's been discussed, there's documentary out about it. Like, Kenny Omega just is a professional wrestler. Gabe Kidd, a lot of people were surprised when Kenny Omega announced it was coming back, and Gabe Kidd was the guy who stepped up. A lot of people were surprised. A lot of people thought this was a bad idea. The initial reaction was not great, right? But when you think about it, these two guys are the same in so many respects in their approach to pro wrestling, where it's all about passion, where it's all about living pro wrestling, about loving pro wrestling. Could you think about Gabe Kidd, and could he do anything else than be a pro wrestler? I don't think so. And he lives it, and you believe it. He's one of these guys that makes you believe in what he's doing is authentic and true and real. Both of these guys made everything feel authentic and true and real in this match. These are two guys cut from the same cloth to a degree. So I was not necessarily surprised when Gabe Kidd was announced. I was like, okay, this is interesting. I kind of like this. And we knew, like I said, we knew this match would be good, if only because Kenny Omega would not let anything less than good happen here. Kenny's a guy who this is what he was meant to do. And not unlike Gabe Kidd. These are two guys who are doing exactly what they were meant to do and are ready to just lay it all out there to get it done. And then the trick here in this entire match was to make sure that Gabe Kidd was on the same level, that he could hang with Kenny Omega. And I thought he was excellent. And I don't buy this, I've seen it. I don't think this was a carry job. I don't even think it was close to being a carry job. Carry job is another one of these terms in pro wrestling that gets thrown around, and carry jobs have happened less than a lot of people want to let on. This was not a carry job. I think Gabe lived up to expectations. I think he showed he's able to hang on that level. I thought he was excellent. And I mean really excellent. And I thought this is him losing up. He may have lost the match, but this made him a star. I think this consecrated a lot of thoughts about that people had about Gabe Kidd, or surprised some people. Look, I've been saying for months, okay? Maybe even on to 2 years at this point. Whenever he debuted, like with the War Dogs in New Japan, when he was with what was his name? Bionic Commando dude. Like, it doesn't matter. You've been saying for months, and I've been saying this for months and months and months. Gabe Kidd has always worked for me because he always showed that he has some fire, that he has some passion. Again, not surprised. That's one of the reasons why I wasn't surprised here. Unfocused sometimes, granted, absolutely valid criticism, but I've always been a Gabe Kidd guy since he debuted with the War Dogs, because he always felt special, a beacon, a fire burning in a New Japan environment, which often felt stale, often felt lifeless, particularly under the Sonata reign, last year, or I say last year, in 2023 at this point. He brought an energy to the table that a lot of the guys on the roster just didn't do. Especially a lot of the new guys, a lot of the, the Reiwa 3, all of these young guys coming up to usher in the new era. They didn't have like this vitality, this like, again, I'm going to use the word passion, that we're able to demonstrate it like Gabe Kidd was. So I was always on his side, right? It's Gabe, it's Gabe Kidd. And just imagine for a second, Shota Umino with a fraction of the passion, just a sliver of the passion that Gabe Kidd has for pro wrestling, and how much Shota Umino could benefit from that. So when I've been talking about who, right? I've talked about this quite a bit. When it came to the Wrestle Kingdom main event, a lot of people were upset about Shota Umino. And I pondered the question, I asked the question, I said, who? If not Shota, who? Well, if New Japan does things right, I think that question is answered moving forward. I think Gabe Kidd is your guy. I buy it. They have a guy. And it's Gabe Kidd. The reactions he was getting from the crowd last night. He reveals the lion mark. People go nuts and they boo Kenny Omega. Superstar, beloved, like Japanese, a guy who lived in Japan and who embraced Japanese culture. And they're a guy that was beloved by New Japan fans. He started booing him. Gabe Kidd arrives, and suddenly he's the champion of New Japan Pro Wrestling. He's the one doing the Inoki moves in a match where he wants to stick up because he wants to stick up for the company who he believes represents pro wrestling. Chris Samsa and I, earlier today, we were chit-chatting, and he flat out said, like, we were chatting, he came up with this idea, and he said, look, if you're asking me, you put Gabe, it's time to put Gabe at the head of a faction. It's time to put Gabe at the head of a faction, and that one that he can lead, and a faction about New Japan Pro Wrestling, kind of like Hantai, right? But no longer the passive Hantai where it's just like, well, just throw everyone else in there, and everyone's like, they do their own thing, and it's, some guys are soft and, whatever, you've got Yano doing, no, you get yourself this crew of dudes, and Gabe Kidd leads the charge, and you've got yourself a passionate, intense guy who's just ready. He's ready. He's prime for the next level. You don't have to search. You don't have to try and make something. We got to push more on Shota. Oh, we got to really try with Yota Tsuji. Oh, Oiwa, let's go. We got to push Ryohei Oiwa now. He's right there. If I'm going on vibes right now, I have Gabe Kidd win the G1. We can talk about this later on this year, but nonetheless, like right now, I'm looking at all of this and I'm like, why would you blame anyone from thinking that? If I'm Gedo right now, like at least for a certain part of the year, maybe up until the G1, I tear up whatever plans I had. And I'm making room for Gabe Kidd. I'm moving guys around. I'm having a sit down with Shota, and I'm saying, look, this isn't working. We're gonna send you off on excursion for a bit. You're gonna go find yourself. Go find yourself somewhere. I'll be fine here. I'm gonna have Yumera coming back at some point. I've got Oiwa that I can do something with, but in the meantime, I've got Gabe Kidd. And he's my guy. He's gonna be my guy for the year. Who else do you do? Who else? Again, we're back to that question. If not Gabe Kidd, who? And I'm sure a lot of you are typing right now, Yota Tsuji. Yoda's great and all, but he doesn't have what Gabe is exhibiting right now. And what Gabe is exhibiting is clearly something New Japan fans want, because they were ready. They instantly got behind him in the match with Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega worked heel. So what are we doing? Anyway, big defense of Gabe Kidd here, but I think it's deserved. I have always been on this train. and I am not ready to get off. In fact, I'm upgrading to first class. I'm upgrading to first class, you know, the one with the bunk beds, with the little cabins that you go and sleep in. I'm getting one of those now. And you should buy a ticket for this train before it gets sold out. Tremendous match. I can't wait for New Year's Dash. I mean, probably by the time you listen to this, you know, maybe I shouldn't talk about it too much, because by the time you listen to this, there's a fair chance that New Year's Dash is going to be out of the way. But man, I'm doing something special with Gabe Kidd on New Year's Dash. Like, I'm doing something special. I don't know what, but I'm doing something special. Anyway, we still have an entire card to go down. we've talked about some business, and we've talked about one match, but a hell of a match. So, I mean, look, this is a go out of your way to watch match, right? Like, this is it. Like, this is the kind of stuff. And here, one last thing, and I promise we'll move on. This is the kind of match that reminds me how great professional wrestling is. And it's the kind of match that it makes me feel sad that there are a lot of wrestling fans who will not see this match because they have preconceived notions and so on and so forth, because they are going to be content at having, you know, monologues and, you know, community theater pack in their matches, and they're going to sit there, they're going to be clapping their hands together and saying, this is great pro wrestling. This is cinema. This is the greatest thing ever. And then they're going to be missing out on a match like this. They're going to be missing out on a legitimately emotional, authentic match like this. Something that makes you feel something real, not something contrived, not something that you as a fan, you're playing your part and reacting in a way that the company expects you to react. No. You're watching two guys who legitimately, unquestionably love pro wrestling, just completely leave it all out there. No charm bracelets, you know, no stories about self-doubt, plaguing shit. It's just like, no, got something to prove here. It legitimately makes me sad that there are people who are going to willingly avoid watching this match, and those who will, and a lot of them who will, I should say, will have their vision of pro wrestling be so disrupted that they won't be able to see the greatness, the inherent greatness of it. That it makes me kind of sad. Let's move on. Zack Sabre Jr. defeated Ricochet to retain the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. Might as well get those two big matches out of the way. Listen, look, I think lesser men having to follow Omega Kid would have fallen flat on their face on this one. Lesser men would have. But these guys, they're not stupid. They're backstage. They're watching this on the monitors or whatever. And they're like, Jesus Christ. Okay. We've got to come out. We've got to go out there and do whatever we can to find some kind of standing here, some kind of leg to stand on, because we just saw one of the greatest matches of all time. How are we going to follow this shit? Well, by being exciting and holding a great pace and being just a lot of fun with some two extremely, like I said, if it had been anyone else than these two guys, I'm not sure that the result would have been as convincing. I think a lot of guys would have been deflated. A lot of guys would have been like, shrug their shoulders and just be like, well, what are you going to do? But no, not Zach, not Ricochet. I think they're both guys who are nonetheless, they're in a position where they have something to prove. I think Zach feels like he has a lot to prove in being a world champion for New Japan. And Ricochet, I think he feels like he's been in this position of having to prove himself ever since he left WWE. I think people have been judging him very a lot. I've been nitpicking him, zeroing in on him specifically because of who he is, because of, you know, his time in WWE, and then coming back and like, oh, well, la-di-da, you know, kind of thing. It's like, so I think he himself has felt he has a lot to prove. So why not put two guys who've got, you know, a chip on their shoulder, got something to prove? Why not put them to follow this match? I think that rules. They understood the mandate and they delivered. You know, they knew coming out for this match, they couldn't do this match slapping on headlocks, you know, and bear hugs and stuff like that. So what happened? Ricochet attacks Zack Sabre Jr. as Zack is doing his entrance, right at the ring. And then it was just go, 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 go. Ricochet starts, you know, he's doing acai moonsaults. He's doing, he's doing 450s. Like, he's got the whole thing going, right? And it's just go, 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 go. And they worked clean, professional wrestling. It was so good. And this was a really good match. My main criticism is that they might have missed the peak. They might have ran out of steam at some point, and I think they missed like the high point of the match. You know, it sort of loses steam a little towards the end. I think they could have benefited from shaving off a lot of time. Thankfully, they didn't go for like a proper Wrestle Kingdom 40-minute main event like we got the night before, for instance. But you know, that's maybe what ultimately hurts the match in an overall review scale thing. Because to me, it's still a 4-star match. This match absolutely ruled. Like, this was a blast. Zack Sabre Jr. is tremendous. You know, on my Wrestle Kingdom review, I was talking about how, you know, he's, you know, one of the things he needs to do is find his championship legs, and how I felt like he had them with Shota Umino because he was giving so much to Shota Umino throughout the entirety of his match with them, and led the match down a tremendous path. I think he did the exact same thing here. He was able to walk through this tremendous match with Ricochet, and to me, there's no doubt that he has the championship legs to be the top guy of a company. As far as match quality goes, match structure, delivering, fantastic stuff. I think you have to be really of bad faith at this point to think that he cannot hang at this level. He absolutely can. I'm not sure it translates into money though, because look at the attendance. He's main eventing, you know, like, you know, that's a whole other, that'll probably be a discussion we'll only be able to properly have once the reign is over. But as it stands right now, like, there's nothing that Zack Sabre Jr. is doing that is translating into ticket sales, at least not yet. But then how long do you wait for it to happen? Like, etc., etc. Ricochet is tremendous, and he still has it in him. And again, this is something that I've been purporting, and I've been talking about for a while. What was one of the first things I told you all when Ricochet was leaving WWE, when there was the potential for him to come to AEW? Look, you got you've got a guy who is still in the prime of his career, who is a tremendous pro wrestler. For a time was one of the best pro wrestlers in the world. Disappeared for nearly a decade in WWE. So, you know, he's not burning himself out. He is not, you know, his bump card is not filling out either. He's healthy. You know, he's not going out there, you know, having these crazy ass matches with WWE. You know, that's just not what happened. So in the meantime, he sees his pals having these great matches. He's getting hungry. So he leaves. Of course you bring him in. Of course you bring him in. You do stuff with him because it's fucking Ricochet. And I think that he clearly still has it in him. I think this was his best match since leaving WWE. He showed it. He showed he still has this high level main event chops, right? We just have to pump the brakes on this idea that he's not good anymore, right? He's already, look, full disclosure, I've listened to the Flagships review of Wrestle Dynasty before starting this, and they said something that just really resonated with me when it comes to Ricochet, and I'm gonna parrot it here. He's already been better at this point in his career in AEW than he has in the entire near decade that he spent with WWE. He's been better used. He's been better featured. It's crazy. His matches have been so much better. Even if we're like, and I remember, like, I myself was kind of like, well, his matches, so. But yet, I think, this idea, it was that we were expecting more out of Ricochet because Ricochet is unfettered now. He's not locked down in the Fed anymore. He can go do whatever he wants. We were all excited to see what an Unchained Ricochet would look like. Maybe we were a little disappointed. How about that at the first few matches? But he's been finding his footing, reacquainting himself with being able to wrestle his style freely, openly, without having a 75-year-old man coming after him and saying, I don't want you to do that move anymore because, it's overshadowing my Roman Reigns guy. I don't want you getting over too much. I think that, the Continental Classic, I think was a big, I don't want to say wake up call, but it was an eye opener, I believe, for us. And I think it's something that he reveled in. And this main event was tremendous. Like, it was tremendous. It was a great match. I don't know what you want. Was it as great as Kenny and Gabe? But no, like, this is like, we're talking about one of the greatest matches one of the greatest matches ever at this point. It's just like an amazing, amazing affair. Zack and Ricochet, they delivered a hell of a match. Don't let one outshine the other and go, this, and because it wasn't as good, that it develops the impression that it wasn't a good match. It's like, I love this. There's one spot in this match where Ricochet suplexes Zack Sabre Jr. onto the apron, right? And they both tumble off the apron then, but Ricochet holds on to him and then suplexes him on the floor. I'm like, more of this. This is great. It's creative. It's surprising. Keeps you on your toes. And the 630 that he took and he landed flat on his back because Zack moved out of the way. Just great stuff. Look, I've got nothing but great things to say about this main event. Aside from the fact that maybe towards the end, it kind of outstayed its welcome a little bit. I would have probably ranked it higher, I guess, if it was a little shorter. I know, it's like, it was a 20-minute match. Does your world championship match, can you put it under 20 minutes? Well, yes, you can, but I understand. It's fine. I love this match. Now that we're done talking about Ricochet and we started talking about Shota Umino, let's continue that train of thought and go to Shota Umino defeating Claudio Castagnoli, who was sent, of course, by Jon Moxley to teach old Shooter a lesson. I thought that was a good match. I thought this was a good match. I enjoyed it. And it turns out that my issue with this match is very close to the same issue I had with the Shota match from the night before from Wrestle Kingdom. And it's that this match was designed for Shota to work the crowd into loving him, into getting behind him, was legitimately worked like that to get him over as a babyface. I mean, the heel attacks him during his entrance, right? To get boos. And what, a babyface then fires up and, builds the dramatic comeback and gets the crowd to rally behind him. And again, Shota Umino does not do that. And he's given this by Claudio Castagnoli, who proceeds to walk the dog with him for the majority of this match. We'd have these little hope spots, but Claudio would just squash them. It was almost, at some point I was like, wait a second, are we sort of, I sort of felt like this was the promoter telling one other wrestler, go out there and, humble him, teach him a lesson, kind of thing. It kind of felt like that at some point. I'm like, what am I watching? He's not getting anything in. But then when the match ends, and especially the way it ends, right, with, Shota doing a dirty deeds, a Death Rider, just to get the flash win, which was weird in the structure that was set up here. Like, yeah, he never had his proper mounted comeback. He never got the crowd to get behind him. When he won the match, the audience booed. The issue with Shota Umino is profound. The audience is rejecting him. This is exactly what I was talking about on the Wrestle Kingdom review. The audience is rejecting him. They're moving on. This is Vince and Roman Reigns all over again. They don't want him. And that's why I get passionate when we're talking about Gabe Kidd, and I'm saying Gato has to tear up his plans or has to do something different. Like, if Gato sticks to Shota Umino coming out, slapping hands, kissing babies, giving out toys, walking around with his fans, making belts for him and whatnot. If we continue with this presentation, it's pointless and ultimately harming this kid's career. We might reach a point that no one will want him anymore. I stand by my thoughts. I would tell him to hit the bricks. I've got Gabe Kidd. I've got Yoda. I've got Oiwa. I've got Umera, who's coming back at some point. Ren Narita, he's toast. We don't have to talk about him. I've got Konosuke Takeshita at the tips of my fingers. Shut up, fuck off. Go hit the bricks and go do some Tetsuya Naito cosplay and come back and hopefully you'll have found something, right? Go have Shota wrestle in the United States. I can't hammer this home enough. Let him go wrestle in the United States. He clearly loves being in the US. He loves it. So just let him come, let him do his thing and then come back. But he's got to have something else with a new presentation, like a new outlook, a new vibe and some fire. But, I want to be clear that I'm not one of these guys who thinks that Shota Umino is a complete waste and trash and just should be tossed aside. I am not one of those. I think people are often a little hard on him. I think what he needs is more. I think he needs stuff outside the New Japan system. Maybe it's just not a fit. Maybe it's just not a fit for him. I think he should go anywhere else. I'm talking, go to the US, Maybe all he needs to do is start working, go work some Noah, go work some All Japan. Anything else. If the relationship with New Japan was still there with TNA, I'd say, well, go spend some time in TNA. There's none of that available anymore for him anyway. Look, I will acquiesce that it's not an easy issue to I don't think there's a magic solution, because ultimately Shota Umino needs to want it and he has to show that he wants it. I think I think the only thing that you can do is to capitalize on the fact that he's still young and that there's probably places he could go learn from, because right now the New Japan stuff is, look, it's not connecting, right? It's not working out. It's just not, it's not working out, but I don't think it's a disaster. I'm still at the train station and I'm waiting for the right train to jump on. I'm waiting for the right Shota Umino train to jump on. There's been a couple that are passing by. As you know, I've gotten off the Shota Umino train. I'm just waiting for the right time to get back on board. And this isn't it yet, but I'm still waiting at the station. I'm just waiting for the right train yet. I'm still waiting. It'll come. I'm sure it will. All right, let's go back to the start of the show. We'll start with the pre-show and then we'll work our way back up, if you don't mind. The International Women's Cup Final 4-Way match was on the pre-show for some reason. Momo Watanabe defeated Athena, Persephone, and Willow Nightingale to win this cup. And I believe the thing is that now Momo can challenge for any title of any of the partner promotions at any moment or something to that effect, right? Right. I thought that was good. I thought it was a good opener. I thought the ladies worked really hard. I enjoyed it. That bat swing that Momo cracked across Athena's skull was nuts. Like that's assault. I believe that's murder. Is what that is. Attempted homicide at the very least. I thought it was a good opener. I thought it was a lot of fun. I don't understand why this was on the pre-show. Because this match was built in all four promotions, and all four promotions all had like little tournaments or little 4-ways, or AEW did an actual little mini tournament for this, and this ends up on the pre-show. I don't understand because this was built properly. This was a properly built match, and it's on the pre-show. And I don't get it. I don't get it. Why was the CMLL gauntlet match? Well, I say the CMLL, the Lucha gauntlet match. Why was that not on the pre-show? A match that was thrown together last minute, right? Didn't have any build, any circumstance around it. Why wasn't that? That does... I'm just, and I'm exposing this just on a level of, on a purely booking level where you're like, we have this on one hand that was booked properly, this that was just thrown together. Which of the two should we put on the show, on the main show? It defies my logic. I can't explain it. I can't defend it. I don't understand it. So there you go. The other pre-show match was Dustin Rhodes and Sammy Guevara, the Sons of Texas. They defeated the House of Torture duo of Sho and Yoshinobu Kanemaru. That's a match that happened. Then the main show started. Lucha Gauntlet match kicked the show off officially, where Taiji Ishimori defeated El Desperado, Hechicero, Kosi Fujita, Mascara Dorada, Master Wato, Soberano Jr., and Titan. So of course it's Taiji Ishimori, right? Now, in one of my group chats I posted that as, of course, Taiji Ishimori is the guy who wins and who pins El Desperado to get a shot at the title, right? Of course it's him. I was like, oh, are we already mad because Ishimori is getting I'm not mad. I said, I'm not surprised. I said, of course. I'm not mad though. But I'm like, of course it's him, because Ishimori is super protected as far as the juniors go, super protected. So of course he's going to be the next guy up to get a shot at El Desperado. What is this? El Desperado Ishimori 22? It's just, here's the thing. Again, not mad. Please don't print in the newspaper that I'm mad, because I'm not. Consider this though. You have the match happening, and they keep adding dudes to the gauntlet match, right? And they have some great luchadors in here. They're bringing, they brought in Hechicero. They got the Mascara Dorada. They have the, Titan, of course, who's a stalwart, and he's great. And they bring in Soberano Jr., which is tremendous. I love Soberano Jr. And then they have Fujita. They have Master Wato. And they're, and Ishimori. Right? You've got an embarrassment of riches, of talent in that ring when El Desperado comes out. I was like, look at these fucking guys. Look at all these fucking guys. And then Desperado comes in, and I really like this, that everyone sort of, when they saw he was coming out, they were like, wait, this is the champ. I want to pin him to get a chance at winning the title. I like that. So I'm like, okay, you could have picked from any of these dudes and some tremendous CMLL talent, right? Because don't forget, Fantastica Mania's coming up. It's not that far off. We're like a month and a half away, something, March, February, something like that. And I'm looking, and I'm like, you decided to go with Taiji Ishimori. Again, not mad. I'm just disappointed. It's just like, I'm not surprised. And that kind of sucks. You kind of want to be surprised. And I'm like, why didn't we get Mascara Dorada in this, in a match with Desperado? And I think low-key, a Soberano Jr. El Desperado match would have been tremendous, It's kind of disappointing. But I enjoyed the opener. I haven't been giving ratings, have I? I haven't given you my crucial star ratings. 3.5 stars for the International Women's Cup. 2 3/4 for the Ring of Honor tag title match, and the gauntlet. Well, I didn't rate the gauntlet match because they're kind of like battle royals and they're hard to. I don't rate these types of matches, but it was fun. I thought it was fun. Of course, there's goofiness and some nonsense, but I enjoyed myself. Hiroshi Tanahashi and Katsuyori Shibata went to a time limit draw in their 5-minute grappling match, exhibition grappling match. New Japan are terrified that Katsuyori Shibata's brain is going to fall out of his head again, despite the fact that he's wrestling more and more like himself in AEW. That they're like, nope. A grappling match, 5 minutes. And what do they do instead? They chop the shit out of each other. And you even have Hiroshi Tanahashi headbutting Katsuyori Shibata at some point. So this was an office approved headbutt. Like, this was approved by the office. Like, the top guy said, yeah, we can do headbutts. Bonk. I'm not rating this. I don't know what to say. Like, and also, okay, so here, I've always been a big Shibata guy, as many of you know. Not unlike Hiroshi Tanahashi watching Kenny Omega and Gabe Kidd go at it, I wept when his music hit and he returned. What was it? Like already 3-4 years ago? Even if it was for these types of little low-key matches, like I was just crying because this is a wrestler I've always loved and had his career cut short, tremendous tragedy, near-death experience. And I was like, I'm a grown man watching pro wrestling and I cried because that's how I felt, just as simple as that. And then, it's like, I've learned to accept that Katsuyori Shibata will never wrestle like Katsuyori Shibata used to. We can get close to it, and we are very close to it at some points, but he'll never, he just can't. He like, and I'm okay with that. I've gone through so many emotions that it's like, I've come to acceptance. It's like, okay, this is who Shibata is now, and I'm fine with it. And in fact, I'm seeing improvements. I'm seeing things I'm seeing him doing different things. So I'm like, okay, you know what? This is actually good. You know what? This is actually good. I can't wish for anything better than this, you know? So when they announced the grappling match, I was like, oh, okay. But like, I don't know. I don't have the nostalgia necessary for this. I'm satisfied where Shibata is. I don't need him in a 5-minute exhibition with Hiroshi Tanahashi. The chopping didn't do anything for me. Like, you know, it's cool, but I'm not like pumping my fist. It was fine. I might, you know, and maybe I'm an outlier on this, you know, because I feel like a lot of people thought this was tremendous, and it's okay if you did. Like because I understand why, because it was a vibes thing, right? But I think like for me, I've gone through stages of grief and renewal of hope, and now like I'm really much at an acceptance where I'm like, okay, this, like, now things feel, there's a normality around my Shibata and my appreciation for Katsuyori Shibata that is just established, that's just settled. And I don't need this type of gimmickry anymore to make me feel something. I didn't feel anything. So, you know, I'm glad they didn't like stick to like a rigid ground game where it's more like, no, we'll still beat the piss out of each other. Interestingly enough, Shibata challenged Tanahashi to a match in AEW where he would actually be sanctioned to wrestle. You know, and didn't they announce that at I might be wrong on this, but didn't they announce that Hiroshi Tanahashi's last match in the US was going to be at Windy City Riot later this year? So that might be a nice little way to wrap things up, because clearly New Japan is not going to let Shibata wrestle at the in Japan, so that he's not going to be part of the Japanese farewell tour. So yeah, might as well get that out of the way. Either that or bring in John Cena so we can finally get the match we never got, right? Like, yeah, there's a lot of talk about, I feel like there's discussion about dream matches. You know, I was asked on a live stream recently, you know, what are your dream matches for 2025? And there's been, you know, there's a great article over on Voices of Wrestling about that as well. And I think that, you know, what I answered when I was asked on stream, I was like, I feel like the dream match well has dried up. And the things that are left might just be WWE stuff. Wrestlers from WWE might only be what's left as far as dream matches go. And I think a legitimate dream match that still exists, that we'll probably never get, is Hiroshi Tanahashi and John Cena, who both mirror their importance to their respective promotions at the times they were hot, mirror each other so well. Like, these are two guys who basically carried the company on their backs for many, many years. That would be, like, as far as superstars go, as far as, you know, that would be an interesting clash. Hiroshi Tanahashi, don't get me wrong, was always the better worker, but still nonetheless interesting. But then again, do I want to see it in 2025 with Tanahashi completely broken down and, you know, John, you know, wrestling sporadically, you know, little bursts to do the 5 moves of doom, and that's pretty much it. You know, it's like, do I want that? No, I don't. You know, I don't really want that, but nonetheless, that's kind of where we're at with dream matches, I think. Anyway, so I'm thinking Shibata will probably get the match with Tanahashi, the proper match with Tanahashi at Windy City Riot, and that'll be Tanahashi's last match in the US. Mercedes Moné defeated Mina Shirakawa to retain the strong women's title and win the Rev Pro Undisputed British Women's title. A little surprised. I really didn't think that Mercedes was winning. I thought they were going to belt up Mina here, but apparently Rev Pro is ready to foot the bill for having Mercedes over. Okay, that's kind of tremendous, actually. As for the match itself, well, it's another one in Mercedes' streak of great matches. Like, she's just, everything she's been doing recently over the past couple of months has just been top notch. Like, just top notch, great stuff. She and Mina worked super well. Mina looked good, working a body part, which was tremendous as well. It was a smartly executed match, well put together, lots of drama to it as well. I thought it worked. I thought it was really, really, really good. I went and gave it 4 stars. I think Mina Shirakawa overall, I think she also exceeded maybe some expectations. And Mercedes, when she wrestles the Joshi women, she never misses. Like, that's just a thing. Like, you know, I think she should, like, that's clearly where she belongs. If you had the power to take Mercedes and drop her into one area of the world to wrestle for the rest of her career, I think Japan would be it. That's clearly where she works the best. And she has these great matches all the time with the Japanese ladies. It's great stuff. It's really, really great stuff. Good match. I loved it. Yeah, I'm gonna give it a the good old 4. You know what? The more I'm thinking about it, I'm gonna bump it up. We're gonna go 4 1/4. 4 1/4. There we go. Dave Finlay defeated Brody King. God, this match ruled. This was so much fun. Wasn't this just a blast? This was such a fun match. What are we doing here? Like, this spills onto the floor early on, and Brody King he's like, you know, he does the chair barricade spot, you know, where he launches himself, sits the guy down in the chair and launches himself at him against the barricade. Boy, he just went like full force. Like, that was the crash, the noise, you know, it made, and just the visual of it, like, just a fantastic spot. And then later, David Finlay just railroads him into the barricades. It was a fantastic, physical, brutal match that, again, exhibited Dave Finlay's strength. Not just strengths, but strength, his physical actual power. And, you know, I think there's a lot of people who are having an awakening when it comes to Dave Finlay. You know, we had seen him throughout the G1 start to wrestle in this style, this very powerhouse based style, and commentary putting over how sneaky strong he is and so on and so forth. And we got another big example here against Brody King, who is a big guy, and yet Dave Finlay is there picking him up and power bombing him, and, you know, just picking him up for the overkill too. You're like, okay, like, this is it. Like, this is who Dave Finlay has decided to become, and he's tremendous. And quite frankly, I think he's finding his footing. I legitimately think he's finally finding the footing in which he can thrive as a heel in this company. I think he finally has like this identity, this in-ring identity in which he can craft really exciting matches. Because 2 nights in a row, Dave Finlay goes out there, does power moves, tosses dudes around. You know, he's tossing Yota Tsuji around on Wrestle Kingdom, and now, you know, Brody King, and the matches are tremendous. His match with Yota was the match of the night on Wrestle Kingdom. It's not necessarily the case here, but it's still a tremendous match that he had. Could it be that I'm excited for Dave Finlay in 2025? Excuse me. Could it be that Gedo should also look like to what is right under his nose, actually, and be like, yeah, you know what? I have a guy here that I can groom. Look, if you ask me, we didn't talk about it yesterday, really, but if you ask me, when I say yesterday, I mean on the Wrestle Kingdom review, Dave Finlay lost upward. Like, he didn't just he didn't lose this match only to be buried lower on the card. I don't have any inside information, but he got his win back, and that was important. Something might be brewing for New Year's Dash, I would say. And if not New Year's Dash, maybe a little New Japan Cup win. I'm thinking the days of Dave Finlay not cracking to the upper crust of the IWGP World Championship level are pretty much done. He's on his way. Anyway, and Brody is great. You know, if this was a G1 audition, I think it should be a G1 audition, right? This should have been a G1 audition. Like, if I'm Ghetto, I'm like, all right, what are you doing this summer? Can you ask your boss to give you some time off? I kind of want you in my tournament next to this summer. Why wouldn't you? Brody brings something to the table that there's not a lot of guys in New Japan can bring, or at least not established as much. You know, I think, maybe like Jeff Cobb is great and all, but he doesn't have the mobility and agility that Brody has. Hartley Jackson maybe, but we really don't see him all that much. Bad Dude Tito, maybe, but again, he doesn't do many Japanese tours. I'm pro Brody. I think Brody should be pushed. I think Tony Khan should belt this guy up, make the TNT title fun again. Whatever, just like Brody King, brother. Brody King, brother. Kensuke Takeshita defeated Tomohiro Ishii in an absolute barn burner, fucking fantastic, extraordinary, physical, heart-pounding, exciting match that, like, this was the match I was hoping Shingo and Takeshita would be. That's my overall thought. I got it with these two guys here. They're just slugging at each other, beating each other up, and Takeshita, he's showing off his strength. He's knocking Ishii down to his knees really easily. Takeshita, man, he's on the turnbuckle, right, and he lifts Tomohiro Ishii like off the mat and right into a Falcon Arrow. This guy is insane. This guy is so good. Such a creative, beautiful spot to do. And you can only do it with the kind of strength that he has as well. They're dropping Germans. They're firing up. They've got all the fighting spirit in the world, and they're striking and throwing knees and ziguris. Ishii is doing avalanche ranas, and I'm like, why is this guy bumping so much? Why is he bumping like this? 49-year-old Tomohiro Ishii out there bumping like he's 20. An excellent final stretch to this match that had you on the edge of your seat. I couldn't take as many notes because I was just staring at the TV. Like, my God, what am I watching? Extraordinary stuff. 4 3/4 stars for me. Raging Fire. That's the name, right? Raging Fire? Not Burning Fire? Raging Fire. The spinning brainbuster thing. What a fucking match. And Tomohiro Ishii, man, never ceases to amaze us, right? Continues to be at such an incredible level. Despite doing this for so many years, at that same level. And proof positive that this company absolutely could use a guy like Takeshita. So he retained his titles. By the way, that was the match, right? Both titles were on the line, the AEW International title and the Never Openweight title. He retained both. No biggie. I love that match. I just loved it. I have those are the extent of the notes. Here's another match you should seek out and look for. This was absolutely phenomenal. The Young Bucks defeated the United Empire duo of Great O'Khan and Jeff Cobb and Hiromu Takahashi and Tetsuya Naito to become the new IWGP Tag Team Champions, much to my surprise. I thought that by adding Naito and Hiromu to this match, that it meant that it instantly meant that that the Bucks were losing, that Naito and Hiromu were winning. I was like, okay, well they're gonna keep these guys as a duo. You know, the Bucks probably don't want to do the travel and whatnot. It shows how much I know, right?
It sounds like
It really does show how much I know. This was a blast. This was such a blast. Fun match. You know, I didn't take many notes because it's one of these matches that a lot of stuff happens. But the one note I took was how great it was to see the Bucks back. You know, they brought back their old New Japan theme. They got the old gear. They got the and they're doing a lot of throwback Young Bucks moves in here. Stuff that they don't do as much. They were playing a lot of the favorites. And you know what? You know what was great too is that they were so cocky. Like it was just the Bucks, you know, just being these smarmy assholes, but without the pretense of a character or EVPs or all that. It's just like it was just the Bucks. You know, everything you love about the Young Bucks was present in this match because they worked their ass off in this match. They worked really, really. Wasn't Tetsuya Naito who was working in this one? I'll tell you what. Look, lots of stuff happening, lots of high spots. The Bucks win. I'm surprised. They're probably coming back to Japan. Then they're going to probably be doing a couple of more, at least one more date, right? They're at the very least. But I don't mind. I don't mind in the least. You know, y'all know what I think about the tag team situation in New Japan. It's been like this for years, regardless. You know, anything to inject a little something interesting in this instead of falling back onto Bishamon every fucking time. I'm okay with this. And I'm surprised. And it's good. I gave this 4 stars even, right? Yeah. 4 stars even on this one. I thought this was really good. I enjoyed myself a tremendous lot. And the last match that we have to talk about, and look, we've been at this for almost we're creeping on 2 hours, so I don't want to overextend myself talking about particularly this match, which I thought was the worst match of the show. Yota Tsuji defeating Jack Perry to retain the IWGP Global Heavyweight title. I often feel like I'm not the low guy on Jack Perry. I'm not the guy who beat, you know, I'm not the guy who hates him the most. And I want to like Jack Perry, but he makes it hard. And this match was difficult. And I think here, I thought Yota Tsuji showed some fire. I thought Yota Tsuji showed some passion here where he's like, well, I kind of see the direction this match is going and I don't like it. Because we're doing, that's what we're doing here. You know, we're slapping on rest holds and headlocks. And I'm like, what are we doing? Jack, Jesus Christ, man. Like, I know you're the match before Omega and Kid, but I don't get it. I don't understand. I don't understand why Jack Perry just doesn't devour every moment that's given to him. I feel like it's almost like he feels, sometimes it comes across, I don't know if I don't want to misrepresent, but sometimes it comes across as if the time he has on television and in these matches is owed to him. And I never feel like he works to earn it or hold on to it. And I'm like, dude, you were just flown in from the United States to this huge show in the fucking Tokyo Dome. Do you know how many other guys on your roster would sell their mother and their mother's mother to be on this show? And you're just going to go through very basic, uninspired motions? Like, the main question I the main thing that piqued my curiosity in this match was, how did he clear customs with that scythe, basically? Because the rest is like, man, Jack, what are we doing? I was not into this. I'm getting excited for Yota Tsuji to get in the mix with these top guys now. When I say these top guys, he's egging Okada on, and I think that's a long-term thing, but I think the payoff might be great. But I mean, I'd like to see him mix it up with Zack Sabre Jr. I know it probably, but I'd like to see him do that. I'd like to see him with Kenny Omega. At this point, I'd like to see him with Gabe Kidd. I'd like to see what Gabe would be able to get out of him, right? Like, I feel like Yoda's another guy that sometimes it's like pulling teeth to try and show some fire. I still maintain he's a vibes guy until I see different. I'm sticking by that. He's not, I don't think he's a lost cause by any stretch of the imagination, but for a guy that everyone earmarks as, a future world champion, boy, oh boy, we've got some juice to squeeze out of that guy yet. But Jack Perry, man, I don't know. I don't know. Bit of the low light. I went 3 flat on this. I was kind of hesitating between going a little lower, but I don't know. I think Yoda did good. We've already talked about the top 2 matches of the card, so that wraps up the review of Wrestle Dynasty. I think you should do yourself a favor. You should be kind to yourself. Do yourself a favor. Get the show. Sign up for $10 on New Japan World. $10, and then you can unsub, right? $10, and you are going to watch one of the absolute best wrestling shows you're going to see this year. I think it's pretty much guaranteed. An all-timer show with an all-timer match and great stuff all throughout the card. Like, you will not be bored. Do yourself a favor, watch the whole thing. If you're really strapped for time, then Kenny Omega, Gabe Kidd, and Takeshita Ishii, those are my recommendations. Those are the 2 matches that you owe yourself to watch. But yeah, why not have, look, you reserve a day out of the week. It's your self-care day, okay? It's your self-care. You turn off the phone. You log out of Twitter. You put the phone on mute. You're not answering anything. You fix yourself your favorite drink. You get your favorite little snacks or whatnot. Make yourself all cozy. You like the blanket, get a big blanket, wrap yourself up in it. You don't, you like to sit on the floor on your beanbag, do that. Like whichever way you get yourself comfortable, right? Just to create a good mental space for yourself. Get yourself all set up and just watch the show. And it'll remind you why you love pro wrestling in the first place. I promise you that. That's the review. Hope you enjoyed that too. And that just about does it for another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show here. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. A last pitch, one last ditch effort to get you to leave a like on the video and reviews, ratings, and all that good stuff. I will be back, of course, Thursday with the AEW Dynamite review, and then back next week for another edition of the AEW of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. There's no AEW Mr. Warren Hayes Show. That doesn't exist. It probably will never exist on top of that. Probably not. But yeah, we'll be back next week with the podcast. If you're listening on YouTube right now, be sure to subscribe, because then on top of that, you will, on top of these recordings, you will also be notified when I live stream. I live stream a couple of times a week, and they're generally pretty good times. We have a good time hanging out and talking about wrestling and other ancillary stuff as well. So be sure to join me for those as well. We'd love to have you. So on that note, thank you very much for being here. Go watch some Randy Orton and get back to me, and I'll see you next time.